Chapter 26. Sunday, cheer up, the game isn't over yet, Zai shouted to Sunday when he saw this. No, it's over, said the principal of the Noble Academy who was in the judging seat. With the blessing of Yushin and Yuzuru, it will be difficult for Sendai to win even with the strongest ultrasonic larvae in his hand. The most important thing is that Sendai has lost the will to fight. The other teachers and the principal of Dead Leaf Academy didn't say anything, but it was obvious that they thought the same. Sunday, you don't need to think about how to win, you just need to fight to your heart's content, Zai said to Sunday again. Pika. Hearing the calls from Zai and Pikachu, Sunday was stunned, and Yulongyuan on the opposite side also looked at Zai. Huh? What is this kid talking about? Just a stupid boy who knows nothing. That's right, what does it mean to fight to your heart's content? Ignoring the voices around him, Zai continued, Sunday, winning or losing is just a part of Pokémon battles. Losing may be hard, but if you give up just because the opponent has a greater advantage, are you really willing to do that? Wouldn't all your and the Pokémon's efforts during this period be wasted? Hearing what Zai said, Sunday felt a little touched and couldn't help but take out the ultrasonic larva's Pokeball. Ha ha ha. That's very well said. Before anyone else could speak, Yulongyuan clapped his hands and spoke. Principal Grandpa, can I let Sunday and him fight with me in the next match? That is, a doubles match. Yulongyuan looked at the principal of Vermilion Leaf Academy and pointed a finger at Zai and asked. Hi. After hearing what Yulongyuan said, everyone including Zai and Sunday were confused. Anyway, even if we continue fighting, Miss Sunday will be easily defeated by me given her condition. It's better to let her try it. There may be a surprise. What do you think, brother? Yulongyuan asked Zai. I don't have any problem. I actually want to fight Yuan as well. Pick up. Zai and Pikachu both looked at Yulongyuan with fighting spirit. After some discussion, the judges on the stage agreed with Yulongyuan's plan. It was not because they thought that Zai and Sunday could win together, but it would be a bit boring if it ended like this. Zai walked onto the stage and held out an umbrella for Sunday. This is. You'll catch a cold if you keep getting wet in the rain. Since the previous discussion wasted a lot of time and the effect of praying for rain had expired, they asked Yulongyuan to pray for rain again before the game started. Then what will you do? He took Zai's umbrella, feeling warm in his heart and a smile appeared on his face. Don't worry, it's just a little rain, I'll be fine. It would be better to say that Zai has never experienced what a cold is from birth to now. Hey, did you see that Miss Sunday seemed to smile at him? Wow, my goddess just left me like this. Why choose that stupid boy instead of me? I also want to compete with Miss Sunday. Ignoring the envious and jealous voices around him, Yulongyuan took the lead and said, Brother Zai, let me see your strength. I will definitely fight with all my strength. My Pokémon are Thorn and this guy, her previous consumption was not large, and she had also received a slight treatment, so her status was almost full. Yulongyuan sent out a blue and white Pokémon with a single horn on its head and a snake-like appearance, and Sunday also sent out its own ultrasonic larva. Haken and Thorn Dragon? Sorry, Pikachu, you don't have to participate in this battle yet. Pick up. Seeing Pikachu eager to try, Zai said to him. Zai, go ahead. When everyone saw the Pokémon sent out by Zai, they were stunned. Oh my gosh, Charmander! It's shiny, but Charmander! In the rain, facing the water dragon type Thorn Dragon and the dragon type Hakron, he actually used the fire type Charmander. Is it that I can't keep up with the times, or is this world crazy? Don't think too much. I don't think he wants to win. If he can win with this, then I will swallow all my textbooks. Hey! You know what, it's really possible. After all, he advised Miss Sunday to fight as much as she wants. He may not really want to win. Sunday also looked at Zai in confusion. Don't worry, Sunday, we will definitely win, Zai looked at Sunday with a smile. Please, Charmander. Charmander gave Zai a thumbs up. Seeing Zai's sunny smile, Sunday's face turned slightly red, and her heart calmed down. She had a strange feeling that no matter what happened, as long as Zai was there, it could be solved. Strange, what's wrong with me? Am I in love with him? No, that's impossible, it's just that Zai is more reliable, but it's definitely not love, at most we are more than friends, but less than lovers, ah. What am I thinking? Game start. Just as Sunday was daydreaming, the game began. Dragon King, Haxorus uses water cannon. Although Yulongayuan was also wondering why Zai sent Charmander, he would not underestimate the opponent. The double water cannons are extremely powerful under the blessing of rain. Charmander grabs the ultrasonic larva and attacks the ground with a jet of flames. After receiving Zai's order, Charmander stretched out its arm and grabbed the sonic larva that didn't react, and used jet flame towards the ground. The reaction force made Charmander and the sonic larva rise rapidly, avoiding the water cannon attack. Seeing that Sunday was still in a daze, Zai thought she was still immersed in her previous failure, so he promptly asked Charmander to bring the ultrasonic larva. The ultrasonic larva grabs Charmander and flies it up, then attacks with its dragon breath. We also use dragon breath, Charmander. When Zai gave the order, Sunday also came to his senses and gave the order in time. Wave. The ultrasonic larva grabbed Charmander's body to prevent it from falling, and both of them exhaled emerald green dragon breath at the same time. Hold on, King Thorn Dragon, and Haxorus go behind the King Thorn Dragon. The green shield of the Thorn Dragon King blocked the double dragon breath attack, and the Haxorus was not injured because it hid behind the shield. Sunday, are you okay? Well, sorry for making you worry, I'm fine now, Sunday said embarrassedly. After all, it was really embarrassing to be absent-minded during the game because of that kind of thing. Charmander, continue using dragon breath. Seeing that Sunday was fine, Ash continued to order Charmander to attack. Ultrasonic larvae with sandstorm. The Thorn Dragon King dodges and uses freeze beam, and Haxorus directly uses dragon dance. The Thorn Dragon used its ability to swim freely and quickly moved on the ice, easily dodging the attack, while the Haxorus spun on the spot and performed a dragon dance. The two attacks landed on it and caused some damage. The Thorn Dragon King used water guns to knock them down. The Thorn Dragon King kept using the water gun while moving, and the supersonic larva could only dodge in a hurry. Although the water gun was not as powerful as the water cannon, with the properties of Charmander and the supersonic larva plus the blessing of rainy days, if hit, it would suffer considerable damage. If you keep going like this, you'll get hit sooner or later. I said that boy's Charmander is not good enough. That's right. I think if Miss Sunday's ultrasonic larvae fight the Thorn Dragon King alone, their chances of winning might be even higher. Various discussions were heard around again. It still doesn't work. Sunday said with a wry smile. There must be a way, if it weren't for the ice field that made it impossible for Charmander to move properly on the ground. Wait, Zai suddenly thought of something. Maybe this will work, Zai muttered to himself, with a smile on his face. Chapter 27. Defeat the Thorn Dragon King. Sunday. Hey! What happened? Zai suddenly called out to Sunday, and moved closer to her, putting his head close to her ear to speak. Sunday's body tensed up immediately when she noticed Zai's actions, and the warm breath made her face flush. Before she started to think wildly, Zai's next words calmed her down. Hey! What is that kid doing? How dare he blaspheme my goddess? I'm definitely going to kill him. Yulongayuan, who was facing him, was also a little surprised why Zai was still being so affectionate with Shenday in this situation, but he immediately noticed that Zai seemed to be saying something in Shenday's ear. Are you planning some tactics? Interesting, let me see how you are going to break the impasse, Yulongyuan muttered to himself with some excitement. Will this really work? Sunday doubted the feasibility of this plan. Trust me, and trust our Pokémon. Yet, Sunday looked at Zai's confident eyes, then looked at ultrasonic larva and Charmander, and nodded firmly. Charmander covers the entire place with smoke screen. Charmander spewed out a large amount of black smoke that covered the entire venue. Dragon King and Haxorus used Tornado to blow away the smoke. Ultrasonic larvae for earthquakes. Hakron, fly up quickly, and the Thorn Dragon King will fly into the air with a water gun. Thorn. Ha! Yulongayuan changed the order in time, and Thorn Dragon King and Haxorus rushed out of the smoke screen one after another. At this time, there was a violent vibration on the field. Don't stop using ultrasonic larva, keep using earthquake. Wave. There were continuous vibrations on the field. The Thorn Dragon King and Hakran used Tornado again. Although he didn't know what they wanted to do, Yuan instinctively felt that something was wrong. The Thorn Dragon and Haxorus used tornadoes from their mouths and tails respectively to blow away the smoke. When the black smoke dissipated, what appeared in front of everyone was a shattered ice field. Charmander lay on the back of the ultrasonic larva to avoid the attack of the earthquake. At this time, the Thorn Dragon spread the thin wings behind it and slowly descended, and the rain stopped. Charmander melts the ice around you with his jets of fire. I won't let you succeed. The Thorn Dragon will use the water cannon and the Hakran will use the dragon wave. Boom! Prick! What? What? At this time, the thorny dragon that landed on the ice was about to exert force, but the ice underneath suddenly shattered. The ice had become very fragile under the vibration of the earthquake skill and it was easily broken. The thorny dragon fell to the ground. Seeing this, Hakon couldn't help but stop attacking, but Zai and Sunday seized the opportunity in time. Charmander / Supersonic Larva, use Dragon Breath. Wave. Ni. The two dragon breaths directly hit the Thorn Dragon King, causing considerable damage to it. The ultrasonic larvae used all their strength to earthquake the empty space. Charmander, get on the back of the ultrasonic larva. Charmander jumped onto the back of the supersonic larva, and the supersonic larva used an earthquake in the place that Charmander had just cleared. The earthquake waves spread around and splashed up a lot of broken ice. Hurry up and hold on, King Thorn, and use your flame jet to melt the ice. Yuan looked at the broken ice all over the sky and gave orders hurriedly, but the earthquake wave hit the Thorn Dragon King in advance, and then he was knocked down by the numerous broken ice. Although Haxorus used jet flames in time, he was still injured by some ice cubes. The Thorn Dragon King has lost his ability to fight. Oh! That's awesome, Miss Sunday. Great job, ultrasonic larva. See? This is the strength of our college goddess. Thunderous cheers immediately rang out from the aristocratic school. Principal Kuya, hey, old man, who is that Zai? In the eyes of many students, the victory over the Thornbill was thanks to Sunday's powerful strength and excellent command, because the one who contributed the most in this battle was the ultrasonic larva. However, they never thought that to make such a quick counterattack, not only did they need enough tacit understanding with the Pokémon, but they also needed a careful plan. But the two principals were experienced people after all. They knew very well that such a strategy could not be thought of by a traditional student like Sunday, and they saw what Zai whispered in Sunday's ear just now. Noble principal, if I tell you that he is just a rookie trainer who has just debuted for less than a month, would you believe it? You are kidding me, right? No, he is indeed a newcomer, but his parents are extraordinary. It's no wonder that Principal Kuya asked this. After all, apart from being a little reckless, Zai is not like a newcomer in other aspects. Oh! Parents! I'll tell you after the game is over. Seeing him say this, Principal Kuya didn't ask any more questions. Sunday was very happy that he could defeat the Thorn Dragon King, but when he heard the voices around him, he couldn't help but frowned and looked at Zai with an apologetic look. Sorry Zai, I will explain it to them after the battle is over. Huh? What? Oh, it doesn't matter. This battle is indeed thanks to Sunday and the ultrasonic larvae, and I will be leaving soon. After hearing Sunday's words, Zai was a little confused at first, but when he heard the voices around him, he understood and said while scratching his head. When Sunday heard what Zai said, he was annoyed. If he had known this would happen, he should have set a longer time limit, at least 1 month. Now only Hakran is left. Charmander uses Dragon Breath. Ultrasonic Larva uses Earthquake. After this battle, Sunday fell in love with the skill Earthquake, and all of her subsequent Pokémon will use this move. Well done, but don't think you can win just like that. Haxorus uses Dragon Dance. Haxorus did not dodge or evade the broken ice and Dragon Breath attacks brought by the Earthquake, but performed the Dragon Dance on the spot. As Haxorus began to spin, a golden glow rose around its body, but attacks followed, and it was hit by the Dragon Breath and scratched by many ice cubes, suffering considerable injuries. Sunday, ah! Why? Although Dragon Dance increases attack and speed, Haxorus's physical strength is already a candle in the wind, right? Use Sleep. Before Shenday could think, Yuan immediately gave the order. What? Hakran immediately fell into a sleeping state, but not long after, a blue light appeared on Hakran's body, and a thin layer of skin fell off, and Hakran woke up. Zai, it's molting. Sunday, how is that possible? The probability of the molting trait being triggered isn't particularly high. Not only Sunday, but even the students around him were all very surprised. This isn't molting. I remember the probability of molting being triggered is only 30% right. Is it because he is lucky? Impossible. Looking at the order he gave just now, it is obvious that it can ensure the triggering of the molting feature. It's incredible that it can guarantee that the characteristics will be triggered. Is this a new technology developed by the Yulong family? No, through hard work and training, some Pokémon with high enough qualifications can improve the performance of their own characteristics or temporarily ignore the negative effects of their characteristics. Zai has seen this in his notes. Can it be like this? Zai's words once again refreshed Sunday's 3 views, and at the same time he secretly made a decision in his heart. Zai is right. For example, in the Hone region, the Orange Gym trainer Senri Sama's Leaf King can briefly ignore the negative effects of the characteristic at the beginning. My Haxorus has also increased the probability of triggering molting to about 50% through continuous training. Although the rest is a gamble, I believe Haxorus will succeed, Yuan began to explain. Sunday couldn't help but sigh. Pokémon battles are really full of surprises at any time, far beyond what can be summarized in textbooks. But if that's the case, then if some powerful characteristics are improved to the extreme, wouldn't they be invincible? For example, if the sniper characteristic is well trained, wouldn't every move be able to hit the vital point? Zai, I'm not really sure about the details, but it shouldn't be that easy. Chapter 28. Evolution. Fire Dinosaur. Traits are the innate abilities of every Pokémon. Most of them have beneficial effects, of course some have negative effects, but traits are also the most difficult to train. Not only must appropriate training methods be developed based on the Pokémon's specific circumstances, but the Pokémon itself must also have extremely high qualifications. Even then, there will still be insurmountable bottlenecks. I've been training my Haxorus since the Dratini period, but in fact it had made no progress 2 years ago, Yuan couldn't help but say. Traits are the most difficult to train. Once you hit a bottleneck and don't have the right opportunity, it will be difficult to make any further progress, no matter how much resources you invest or how much time you spend. After hearing what Yuan said, Zai and Shende were both thoughtful. But at this time, what Sunday was thinking about was why the characteristic of the opposing Haxorus was molting instead of magical scales. Please continue the game, all 3 of you. The referee on the side couldn't help but remind them when they saw this. The 3 of them immediately came to their senses and gave instructions immediately. Hakran approaches the ultrasonic larva at super speed, and then uses Dragon Wave. No. Ultrasonic larvae, get out of the way. Sunday gave the order hurriedly, but facing the Hakranos that had been strengthened by 2 dragon dances and had the blessing of super speed, the ultrasonic larva had no time to react. I saw Hakran suddenly accelerate, and there was a sound of breaking through the air around it. It instantly appeared in front of the ultrasonic larva and spit out a colorful dragon-shaped wave. The powerful force knocked the ultrasonic larva to the ground, and a violent explosion was heard. When the smoke and dust dissipated, a huge deep pit was revealed, and the eyes of the ultrasonic larva had turned into a whirlpool shape. Ultrasonic larvae lose their ability to fight. It's over, it looks like I'm going to lose after all. Hey! If it hadn't turned into a doubles match we would have won. Too awesome! Yuan. Our Dead Leaf Academy is sure to win this time. Come back, ultrasonic larva, you've worked so hard. I'm sorry, Satoshi, it was my carelessness, Sunday turned to Satoshi and said after taking back the ultrasonic larva. It's okay, you and the ultrasonic larva have done a great job, now it's up to me and Charmander. Yeah, Sunday nodded in response. Unlike the others, after experiencing so many changes and seeing Zai's strength, Sunday did not think that Zai had no chance of winning, even at such a disadvantage. Charmander uses Dragon's Fury. Use Dragon Tail to break it up, then close in with Divine Speed. What? Charmander spit out a purple energy ball from its mouth, while Haxorus' tail emitted green light to disperse the Dragon's Fury, then it disappeared in an instant and appeared in front of Charmander. Water Cannon. Dodge with Jets of Fire. A huge column of water spit out of Haxorus' mouth, while Charmander spit out flames at the ground, using the reaction force to rise into the air and avoid the water cannon attack. Keep using the water cannon upwards. Use Dragon Breath. Charmander, unable to move in the air, could only spit out Dragon Breath to defend against the enemy. The two energies collided, but facing Hakron that had increased its special attack twice, how could a mere Dragon Breath compete with the water cannon? The huge water cannon directly overwhelmed the Dragon Breath. Use Dragon Tail attack instead. Charmander immediately stopped attacking, and its tail emitted green light and hit the water cannon, but it was still knocked away by the water cannon and fell to the ground. Faced with such a fierce attack, Charmander did not lose. Instead, he supported himself on the ground with his hands and looked at Haxorus with firm eyes. What an amazing perseverance! Yulong Yuan couldn't help but sigh upon seeing this. That previous attack would have made Charmander, let alone Charizard, lose its combat capability even. Come on, Charmander! Let everyone see your strength! Zai shouted to Charmander. Sensing Zai's will, Charmander's entire body emitted white light. When the white light faded away, a golden lizard with a bulge on its head and flames burning on its tail appeared in front of everyone. Sunday, it's evolved. It's a Charmeleon. Zai, great Charmeleon, let's go. Roar. Charmeleon raised his right hand and smashed it to the ground. Then pillars of fire rose from the ground to trap Charmeleon and cause damage to it. Yulong Yuan, it's the Flame Oath. Well done Charmeleon, charge forward and use your Dragon Tail. We also use Dragon Tails. Charmeleon took steady steps and rushed towards Haxorus quickly. Its tail flashed green light, and powerful dragon energy was thrown at Haxorus. Haxorus also used its powerful dragon tail. The two tails collided, and dragon energy spread all around. Neither side had any advantage in the first tail-to-tail fight, but Charmeleon used the reaction force to turn around quickly, its left hand emitted green light, and its sharp claws grabbed Haxorus fiercely and knocked it back. Yulong Yuan, this is Dragon Claw. Yulong Yuan was somewhat surprised at the little fire dragon's talent in dragon-related aspects. Very good, Charmeleon, continue to use the Dragon Claw. Quick bundle. Roar. What? Haxorus used its slender body to tightly bind Charmeleon, but Charmeleon immediately spit out Dragon Breath and hit Haxorus directly in the face, causing great damage to it, and Haxorus also loosened the binding. Very good Charmeleon defeated it with his claws. We can't give up, use the dragon's tail. Bang bang! The dragon claws and the dragon tail collided many times, and the fierce confrontation made the trainers of each other and the spectators present feel excited, but such a scene did not last long. Haxorus was obviously a turret, and with the previous consumption, it soon showed signs of fatigue. Charmeleon seized the opportunity and grabbed Haxorus with two dragon claws. The two double-restrained dragon claws finally exhausted Haxorus's physical strength, and he fell to the ground with his head raised. Hakon has lost its ability to fight. The final winners of this college exchange competition are Zai and Sunday. Oh! There was thunderous applause in the stadium. That guy can do it. I didn't expect that I could actually win. His Charmeleon is too strong. Great Charmeleon. Roar. You're awesome, Zai, Yulong Yuan said as he took back Haxorus and walked over. This is truly the most enjoyable battle I've ever had. I look forward to our future battles, when I will use all my strength. Even if that happens, I won't lose. The two held each other's hands and said. I really won, Sunday muttered to himself, and at the same time made a decision. Next day. The principal is really generous. Zai looked at the gold card in his hand. This was the card that the principal gave him last night. There were a full 200,000 alliance coins in it. Zai was scared at the time. Then he took out a piece of scale, which was given by Yulong Yuan. This reminded Zai of the scene when Yulong Yuan left on the Garcomp. From the source, he didn't use his full strength. If he had used that Garcomp, I wouldn't have been able to win. We have to work harder, Pikachu. Pick up. But we're finally leaving. Zai turned his head and looked at the aristocratic school in the distance. It's a pity that Sunday is going to do something. I didn't even get to say goodbye to her properly. At this time, a car drove over, the door opened, and a familiar figure appeared in front of Zai. What are you standing there for? Get in quickly, the figure in the car said to Zai. What? Pick up. So, you just let that little girl from Sunday go with that boy? In the principal's office, Principal Kui asked the noble principal who was making tea nearby. Let's not talk about whether I can make her change her mind. The one who should be worried is Yudo. Besides, letting Side follow him may not be a bad thing. Hearing this, Principal Kui couldn't help but look at the documents on the table. They were about Zai, but the column for parents was no longer empty. Chapter 29, Conversation with Sunday. Inside the luxurious car, Miss Sunday was looking at the scenery passing by outside the window, but from time to time she cast surprised glances at the boy sitting opposite her. At this time, Zai, who was sitting opposite, was flipping through a notebook, while Pikachu had fallen asleep on his seat. I remember you didn't like reading, right? Sunday couldn't help asking. Ah? Oh. You're talking about this? This is my habit, I guess. Zai was a little confused when he heard Sunday's words, but he immediately realized what she was asking. Habit? Well, my mother made me start studying the contents in this book when I was 8 years old, and it lasted for more than a year. Although I didn't have to study it anymore after that, I was still required to take it out and read it every day. Over time, it became a habit. Of course, I would still feel sleepy if I read other books, Zai replied. Sunday was still a little surprised to hear Zai's answer. After all, that was Zai. Zai, who always looked listless when he saw a book, was now reading such a thick notebook. Can you lend it to me? Sunday asked. Of course, Zai said as he handed the notebook in his hand to her. Sunday took it and looked through it. When he opened the first page, the content on it immediately attracted Sunday's attention. The more he read, the more shocked he was. The above contents are either things that Sunday has not learned, or they are more refined versions of the content that has been learned. In addition to these, there are many strange stories and many things that Sunday has never heard of. Sunday couldn't help but ask curiously, Hey, where did you get this notebook? It was written by my parents. It tells what they saw and heard during their travels, as well as some of their own insights. Any questions? Of course there is a problem. Sunday said to Zai excitedly, you know what? There are many things in this book that I have not learned. As an excellent student in the academy and the eldest daughter of the Yudo family, I have read hundreds of books about Pokémon, but even so, the knowledge I gained from them is less than 1% of that in this book. At this point, Sunday suddenly felt that all her studies in the past few years had gone to waste. Your parents must be amazing people, Sunday said to Zai with an amazed look on his face. Is it really that exaggerated? Seeing Sunday like this, Zai couldn't help scratching his head, looking confused. Hey! Let me tell you this, if you take this notebook to auction, the price will definitely be hundreds of millions. This time Zai was really surprised, because he knew that Sunday could not have lied to him, which meant that he had been learning such an incredible thing in the past 2 years. Hey, can you lend me this notebook for a few days? I promise to return it to you. This black card can be used as collateral. There are 200 million alliance coins in it. You can spend it as you like. Sunday took out a black and purple card from a bag beside him and handed it to Zai. Seeing Sunday handing over a black card worth 220 million, Zai suddenly felt that it was ridiculous that he had been so excited for a long time because he got 200,000 alliance coins. It turned out that there was always a big gap between people. No, Sunday, we are friends. If you want to see the notes, I should lend them to you as a friend. This is our friendship. But if I accept your card, there will be a financial and interest relationship between us, and I don't want it to be like that. Faced with such temptation, Zai pushed Sunday's black card back and refused righteously. Hearing what Zai said, Sunday was suddenly moved. Because of her status, she had few friends since she was a child. Even if she had any, it was only because of family reasons. There was no friendship between them. Now she felt extremely happy to have a friend like Zai, although she still wanted to take the relationship with Zai to a further level. Sunday took back the black card, but at the same time he was a little troubled. After all, Zai had been helping him since they met. Although it was because his car was damaged by Zai's Pikachu, these things would not have happened if it were not for his curiosity, although Sunday did not regret it at all and was even very happy. Moreover, Zai had already repaid him through 7 days of academy life, and now he lent him such a precious notebook, so he should also help him a little. Suddenly, Sunday remembered something. Hey, Zai, if I remember correctly, you seem to be using the trainer's certificate instead of the Pokédex, right? Yes, after all, I didn't go to the research institute to get the initial 3 starter Pokémon, so I didn't get the Pokédex. Although Zai didn't know why Sendai asked this, he still answered truthfully. Where do you keep the extra Pokémon in the future? Or do you keep them at home? After all, the Institute's Pokédex is like a special certificate that allows you to store the extra Pokémon in the Institute. Well, I only have 4 Pokémon right now. If there are any extra ones, I'll keep them at home first and see if I can find a suitable breeding house later. Most trainers simply leave their trainees at home, but once their strength improves in the later stages and they achieve good results in the Quartz Conference, they can enjoy subsidies from the League and help from officially certified training houses. Then let me help you. I happen to know a very good breeder, Sunday immediately suggested after hearing Zai say this. Hey! Is it possible? Zai was also very excited when he heard Sunday's words, because if he couldn't solve this problem, he would have to make up his mind to fight the gym and the league with only 6 Pokémon. Of course, and you don't need to feel any burden. I will introduce you to him. You can negotiate with him at that time, and he will input your information. When you have more than 6 Pokémon, you can send the extra ones to him. In addition to the monthly feeding fee, the food consumption of the Pokémon you leave with him will also be counted. So that's how it is. The consumption is easy to say, but how much is the feeding fee? For Zai, who has a fixed amount of money sent by his mother every month, raising Pokémon is not a big problem at the moment, because his current Pokémon has a very low appetite and strength. Even if he has more Pokémon in the future, as long as he arranges it reasonably and perseveres, there will be no problem. In addition, he can also participate in some regional and small competitions and get rewards as subsidies. However, it will be difficult if the feeding fee is too high. You still have to talk to him yourself, but don't worry, that person is easy to talk to. And he might like someone like Zai very much. Thinking back to the first time he saw that person, Sunday couldn't help but think. Chapter 30, Breeder Lay Si. Rada uses Impact. Pikachu uses Iron Tail. Pick up. Rada. In the square of Vermilion City, Zai was commanding Pikachu to fight against a stranger trainer on the opposite side. Pikachu's tail was covered with a layer of metallic luster, and it was swung hard at the rushing Rada. Rada was directly knocked away by the powerful Iron Tail. Now, use 100,000 volts. Pikachu! Pikachu released a powerful lightning bolt that hit Rada, who was struggling to stand up. After a burst of explosions, the eyes of the Rada opposite had turned into whirlpool shapes. It's really awesome. That boy has won 10 games in a row in these 10 minutes, and each one was a clean and neat victory. Young people nowadays are really amazing. Good job, Pikachu. Pick up. Hey, Zai, I've contacted him, come here quickly. At this time, Miss Sunday came over and greeted Zai. Oh, okay, I'll be right there, let's go, Pikachu. Pick up. When he saw Shenday coming over, he knew that the breeder she had mentioned to him before had already been contacted. Oh! Is that girl his companion? She's so pretty. Idiot, how can they be companions? They are obviously a couple. No way, at such a young age you already have such a beautiful girlfriend. Age? They are obviously both adults. What's wrong with having a girlfriend at this age? Let me tell you, my cousin's son's friend is 14 years old and will be getting married soon. Real or fake? Young people nowadays are really amazing. Listening to the discussions around him, Zai looked normal, while Sunday had rosy cheeks and walked quickly forward with his head down, not daring to look at Zai. It's not that Zai didn't know what they were talking about. Because of his mother's elite education, Zai didn't know much about emotional issues, but he knew the basics of liking and loving as well as basic knowledge. The reason why he looked calm was that he didn't think about it, and it didn't matter. The most important thing was, Miss Sunday would like me? Ha ha ha. Don't be ridiculous, how is this possible? Inside the Pokémon Center, Zai was talking to the person on the other end of the phone with a microphone. You must be Zai, right? Nice to meet you. My name is Lazy. On the screen was a man wearing an apron and with a gentle face. Nice to meet you, Mr. Reiji. I'm Satoshi, and this is my friend Pikachu, Satoshi introduced. Pikachu also waved to the people on the screen. Nice to meet you, Lei nodded with a smile. Miss Shende has already told me about you, but I really didn't expect that someone could make Miss Shende change her mind and even make her plan to travel. Oh. Mr. Rai, let's talk about raising Pokémon first, said Sunday on the side a little embarrassedly. Haha, okay, let's talk about business first, Zai. Seeing Sunday's expression, Lei changed the subject. I am very happy about this matter. As for the expenses, it will only cost 5,000 yuan for the daily food expenses of the Pokémon and the monthly feeding fee of 5,000 yuan. Hey! Is the boarding fee only 5,000? This price can be said to be very favorable. The boarding fee of a normal breeding house starts at 8,000. If there are too many Pokémon, it may even be tens of thousands. Because the boarding fee is not just to entrust the Pokémon to the breeder for feeding, that is, the accommodation fee, the breeder will also regularly check the physical condition of the Pokémon to help them adjust and pay for possible medical expenses. Therefore, although the boarding fee must be paid every month, it will not be too low. Well, that's fine. You don't have to worry about whether I'm giving you a discount because of Miss Sunday. This is the price of my breeding house. It's just that I won't accept anyone to deposit their Pokémon here casually. After all, there are too many Pokémon for me to take care of, Lei explained. Hey! Why? Is it because of the Sunday? Hey! Zai, do you have any problem with me? Sendai said angrily when he heard Zai mention him. Of course not. I just don't want to owe you too much. Seeing that Sunday was angry, Zai quickly waved his hands and explained. Please, if we're talking about debt, it's obviously me who owes you more, and like you said, we're friends now, so isn't it normal for us to help each other? Sunday put his hands on his hips, looked straight at Zai, and said in a somewhat forceful manner. Sorry, it's my fault. I won't do this again next time. Seeing Sunday's questioning look, Zai realized that he had said the wrong thing. Haha, you guys have a really good relationship, Lei couldn't help but laugh when he saw them like this, but you don't have to worry, Zai. I will accept that Miss Sunday is indeed the reason, but the main reason is because of you, Zai. Because of me? Zai was a little surprised to hear Lei Si's answer. After all, he and Lei had just met for the first time and there was no blood relationship between them. That's right, you just introduced Pikachu to me, and with the intimacy between you and Pikachu, it's not hard to see that you, Zai, like Pokémon very much. The emotions in the eyes of Pokémon and trainers and the smiles on their faces can't be hidden, so I know that you, Zai, are someone who deserves my full help. Is that so? Hearing Reiji's words, Zai couldn't help but turn his head to look at Pikachu on his shoulder. Just at this moment, Pikachu also turned his head, and the man and the Pokémon looked at each other, and they couldn't help but smile knowingly. Next, Zai, you just need to insert your trainer's certificate into the card slot of the communicator. I will enter your information. The fee will be calculated from the time you send me the first Pokémon. Of course, you can also pay some in advance. Okay, I'll trouble you, Mr. Lei, he said as he inserted his trainer's certificate into the corresponding card slot. As for the fee, I can pay 100,000 first. Then I may go to a place to train for a while, and will send the Pokémon to you later. Okay, I get it. Then Zai took out the gold card that the principal of the college had given him, inserted it into the corresponding card slot, and then operated the buttons on the communicator. Okay, I've received it and your information has been entered. I have something else to do, so I'll hang up now. Okay, goodbye Mr. Lei. Goodbye. As the screen turned black, Zai and Sunday also left. On the way, Sunday curiously asked Zai, you just said that you would go somewhere to train for a while, where are you going? Oh. By the way, I haven't told you about this yet. Zai suddenly remembered that he had not told Shende that he was going to Lanling Island, so he explained the situation to her. Chapter 31. Lanling Island? After listening to Zai's explanation, Sunday asked in confusion. Yes. Landling Island, I plan to go there to train for a while. My mother told me that there are very powerful Pokémon there, and my Pokémon and I can effectively improve our strength there. I didn't expect there was such a place. How did your mother know all this? Also, does this mean you don't plan to challenge the gym? I heard from my mom that she and dad found this when they were traveling together. As for the gym, thinking of Brock's powerful Steelix, Zai couldn't help but clench his fists. My current strength is not enough. I need to train well first, and then challenge the gym. Are gym leaders that strong? Sunday was a little surprised to hear Zai say this. She knew Zai's strength and she had also conducted simulated battles with the Pokémon of various gym leaders on the Academy's computer. But according to what Zai said, the strength of the gym leaders might be far beyond her imagination. Well, they are really strong. According to Mom, they are the strongest ones under the King Champion. In normal gym battles, they don't show their true strength. Instead, they will let them win and send out suitable Pokémon to fight, and they won't use their main Pokémon. So that's how it is, Sunday suddenly realized after hearing Zai's explanation. In that case, I want to go with you too. Hey! But Sunday, I might be staying there for a long time, and life on the island might be hard. Are you looking down on me? Sunday gave Zai a sidelong look. Since I've decided to travel and make myself better and stronger, I'm certainly ready to endure hardships, Sunday patted his heaving chest and said with a firm look in his eyes. I see. Let's go together. Looking at Sunday's eyes, Zai also understood her determination. Next, let's go buy a boat ticket. We need to go from here to Red Lotus Island first. Hey! Wait a minute, Zai was about to leave when Sunday stopped him. Huh? What's wrong? I had originally wanted to go after I finished the gym today, but now it seems I'd better go take a look first. Here you go, Sunday took out a ticket from his bag and gave it to Zai. What is this? Zai took it and asked puzzledly. This is the ticket for the Saint Anne's. The Saint Anne? Pick up. Well, my parents and I were invited to attend a party on the Saint Anne's. I heard that many celebrities will be there. I didn't plan to go because I had to go to school, but now I have to go. And this ship will pass by Honglian Island. Let's go together. Seeing Sunday's unyielding look, what else could Zai do but accept it? It didn't conflict with his own purpose anyway. This is the Saint Anne. Pick up. Zai and Pikachu looked at the luxury cruise ship in front of them with shock, and said in their hearts, she is worthy of being the eldest daughter of a wealthy family. What are you still standing there for? Come here. Ah! Oh, here it comes. He boarded the cruise ship under many envious gazes, followed the waiter to his room, put his backpack aside, and lay down on the bed tiredly. Pikachu also lay down beside him. They had been sitting in the car for a long time, and then fighting and talking with Rito. Both Zai and Pikachu felt tired. Sunday's room was right next to mine, and she should be resting now. I heard her say that there would be a party in a while, and I was asked to attend it. The thought of it was troublesome, and my eyelids became heavier and heavier without me noticing, and I fell asleep soon. When Zai and Pikachu fell asleep, this Saint Anno also started its journey. Bang bang bang! An unknown amount of time had passed before there was a knock on the door. Zai took his hand away from Pikachu's head and got up drowsily. Pikachu also woke up and rubbed his sleepy eyes. At this time, there was another knock on the door. Are you awake, Zai? Asked the person outside the door. When Zai heard the question outside, he immediately lost his sleepiness. It was Sunday's voice. Zai got up to open the door and responded, I'm awake. Wait a minute, I'll open the door. Pikachu, get up quickly, Sunday is calling us. Before leaving, he called Pikachu who was still yawning beside him. Crack! The moment the door opened, Zai was stunned. The girl in front of him was wearing a purple dress, a pearl necklace around her neck, a pair of dark purple high heels with a bright gem on them. Zai had no doubt about the authenticity of the two gems. Her bright red lips were obviously painted with lipstick, her eyes were black and shiny, and her soft hair was still hanging straight down as usual. What do you think? Sunday asked curiously. Hey! Very beautiful, Sunday. It was indeed very beautiful. Such a Sunday looked more noble and elegant than usual. If she was usually dressed like a well-educated noble lady, then now she was a dignified and virtuous princess. Of course, for Zai, apart from being beautiful, there was no other feeling. However, when hearing Zai praising her beauty, Sunday was still very proud and didn't care about it. Or maybe it was a very remarkable thing to have Zai say that a person was very beautiful. Here you go, Sunday handed Zai a blue men's suit, put it on and come find me in the hall. Eh? Aren't you the only one invited to this party? I'll be back soon after getting something to eat, so there's no need to wear a dress, right? Zai took the dress and asked in confusion. What are you talking about? Not only are you going to the party with me, but you're also going to dance with me as my partner. Hey! We want to dance together, I don't think I've ever heard you say that. Otherwise, do you have to stay in the room all night? You should know that not only will many well-known people in society come to this party, but it is said that you can also buy a lot of good things. Moreover, I heard that several gym leaders from Kanto and other regions are also participating, and there will be a Pokémon battle afterwards. Gym leader. Pokémon battle. Okay, I'll join in. When Ash heard that there would be a battle and gym leaders participating, he immediately became interested. After hearing Zai's answer, Sunday showed an expression that I expected. This time, Sunday has really grasped Zai's character. Chapter 32. Familiar Stranger. When we arrived at the hall, it was already full of people. Except for the waiters, everyone was wearing a suit or dress. I didn't expect you to look so good after dressing up, Sunday said to Zai who had already changed into a dress. What Zai is wearing now is more like aristocratic clothing than a formal dress. The blue coat and blue pants make him look simple and elegant. He wears white gloves on his hands and the sneakers on his feet have become long leather shoes. If he wears a sword, he will look like an ancient knight. Is that so? Zai looked at his clothes. Okay, I'm going to go look for my parents first, and maybe chat with some acquaintances later. You can go shopping first, but remember to come find me at the dance. If you don't come, I'll make you suffer. Got it? Ah. Yes. I understand. Zai straightened his body and assured Sunday. After Sunday left, Zai also hurried to the dining area. After sleeping in the room for so long, Zai and Pikachu were already hungry. They picked up a plate of steak on the table and started eating. Pikachu also picked up a portion of French fries and ate them while dipping them in the ketchup on the side. As expected of a gathering of big shots, the food here is delicious. Pick up. Although Zai's behavior attracted some people's attention, he had to take care not to get his clothes dirty, so although he ate very quickly, it did not give people the feeling of wolfing down the food. Those people just looked at him for a few times and did not care. The most important thing was that they did not know who the other party was, and it was obviously not a wise move to offend him rashly. People of noble birth have received specialized higher education, and they are usually not the dandies in movies and novels, and they will not cause trouble at will. At this time, a person passed by Zai, and Zai couldn't help but pause in eating. The person who passed by Zai also stopped, and the two of them turned around at the same time involuntarily. What caught Zai's eyes was a hedgehog with brown hair. He was wearing a black suit with a red bow tie around his neck. His eyes and behavior always revealed a strange confidence, as if there was nothing he couldn't do. The man on the other side was also looking at Zai, but soon he turned and left. Zai also turned around and continued to eat his food, but a strange thought arose in the minds of both of them. Strange, why do I feel that person is a little familiar? And I don't know why, looking at that person's stupid face, I have an urge to beat him up. After eating and drinking, Zai and Pikachu began their battle journey. After defeating more than 20 opponents in a row, a beautiful girl with golden hair and headphones came over. You've trained Pikachu very well, and the battle just now was great, said the blonde girl, looking at Pikachu. Thanks, Pikachu is my most important friend, said Zai, touching Pikachu's head. Pikachu. Hey, she can't be Miss Kamizray. Really? It's the same as on the poster. I didn't expect to meet Miss Kamizra here. Miss Kamizra. Pick up. Nice to meet you. I'm Kamizrat, the gym trainer of the Raven Gym in the Unova region, and I'm also a model. Kamizrat waved to Ash and Pikachu and introduced himself. Hey! Miss Ray is a gym trainer in the Unova region. Pick up. Ash and Pikachu were a little surprised at the identity of the girl who greeted them. Nice to meet you, my name is Zai, and this is my friend Pikachu. After being surprised, Zai introduced himself, and Pikachu waved to Kami'Zile. Nice to meet you, Ash, Pikachu, Kami'Zile said. How about it, Ash, do you want to fight with me? And Miss Ray? I'd love to see that. When Ash heard that he would be battling against a gym trainer, he immediately became motivated. Seeing that they were about to fight, the people around them immediately made way for the battle area. Zai and Kami'Zile stood aside and sent out their Pokémon. Come on Pikachu! Come on, conductive flying squirrel! Zai sent out Pikachu, while Kami'Zile sent out a mouse-like Pokémon with wings shaped like gliders, a black back and a white front, and yellow electric sacs on its face like Pikachu. Is this the Pokémon from the Unova region? Zai looked at the conductive flying squirrel in front of him curiously. Conductive flying squirrel uses 100,000 volts. Pikachu, we also use 100,000 volts. The two mice simultaneously released two electric currents of 100,000 volts, which collided in the air and caused an explosion. This time, when they were testing each other, both sides had an idea of each other's strength. Zai, its strength is about the same as Pikachu. Don't you use the main Pokémon? Kami'Zile, very strong electricity. Although Flying Squirrel is my second-tier Pokémon, it is not something that ordinary Pokémon can fight against. That Pikachu is very powerful. The two sides stared at each other and gave orders at the same time. Pikachu, use Lightning Flash, and Conductive Flying Squirrel, use Swallow Return. Pikachu emitted a white light and quickly rushed towards the Conductive Flying Squirrel. The Conductive Flying Squirrel was not to be outdone. It spread its glider, flew a circle in the air, and then quickly rushed towards Pikachu. The two collided again and were in a stalemate for a while before separating. The fierce battle began to attract more and more people to watch. Oh, that little baby is pretty good, he actually fought back and forth with Miss Ray, said a brown-skinned burly man. This level is not enough, said a beautiful girl with long purple hair and a curvy figure indifferently. Although the conductive flying squirrel is not Kami's main force, it is already quite good to be able to fight it to that extent, said a girl with red hair and wheat-colored skin. Is he the Zai that Xiao Yuan mentioned before? For a rookie trainer, being able to achieve this level is already quite good, said a tall girl with light blue hair. Kanto Region Vermilion Leaf Gym Trainer, Mash Ishii. Kanto Region Gold Gym Trainer, Nancy. Fukios Gym Trainer in the Unova Region, Fulu. The Smokescreen Gym Trainer in the Johto Region, Yulongchun. The hedgehog-headed boy who had stared at Zai before was also standing aside watching the game, but he looked indifferent, as if such a battle was just like that to him. Pikachu uses Iron Tail. The conductive flying squirrel dodges and uses Air Slash. Zai, who has already thrown himself into the battle, has no idea what other gym trainers think of him, nor does he know that there is a person who deserves a beating watching his fight in the crowd. The conductive flying squirrel flapped its wings, creating streaks of wind. Pikachu used his iron tail to break up the air blades one by one. Just when it was about to hit the conductive flying squirrel, the lights suddenly went out. Chapter 33. The lights suddenly dimmed, causing both sides to stop their attacks. Just when everyone was confused, the lights on the podium in front suddenly lit up, and a man in a white navy uniform walked up to the podium. Ahem, hello dear gentlemen and ladies, I am the captain of the St. Anus, thank you all for coming to this gathering. The captain began his passionate speech on the podium, and Kami'Zile and Zai, who had just been fighting, also recalled their Pokémon. Although it was a pity, it was obviously not suitable to continue fighting now. Next, please invite our special guest for this gathering, the future heir of the Sasaki family, Mr. Sasaki Kojiro, to come on stage and give a speech. As the words fell, a blue-haired man in a suit and black-framed glasses walked up to the podium. Everyone, nice to meet you. I'm Sasaki Kojiro. Just as Kojiro began his speech, people in the audience began to talk. A woman with long red hair and gorgeous clothes whispered beside Zai, really, they didn't even invite a big star like me to give a speech at a party like this. They have no taste. Hey! Are you the famous actress, Ms. Miyamoto Musashi? At this time, someone noticed the red-haired woman and asked, I have seen the movie you acted in, it is really wonderful. Ha ha ha, no, no, thank you for the compliment. Although he said that, he couldn't hide the smug look on his face. Zai and Pikachu looked at Kojiro on the stage with strange expressions, then looked at Musashi who was feeling proud on the side, with puzzled expressions on their faces. What's wrong? Zai, do you know them? Kamasure, who had just fought with Zai, came over and asked Zai. Oh, no, Ms. Kamasura, I just think they are familiar, Zai responded. Are you familiar with them? But it's not surprising. Both Mr. Sasaki Kojiro and Ms. Miyamoto Musashi are very famous figures and often appear in various media. Hey! Are they very famous? Zai didn't know why, but when he heard that they were very famous, he always had a very strange feeling in his heart. Haha, it seems that Zai doesn't know much about these. The Mr. Kojiro above is the heir of the Sasaki family, one of the 4 major families in Kanto. This family is very large even in the whole world. As the only heir of this family, Mr. Kojiro Sasaki also often appears in major media newspapers. And that one over there is a now famous actress, Ms. Miyamoto Musashi. She has starred in many famous movies. Apart from Carlos champion Ms. Carlos, her popularity in the entertainment industry is unmatched. Oh, they are so awesome. While everyone was still enjoying the party, in a dark corner somewhere on the ship, a group of men in black were having a secret conversation. How are you preparing? Everything is ready, and our people are all in place. Once the operation begins, we can quickly control the entire ship. But is it really okay? You know, this time, in addition to those wealthy nobles, there are also many powerful trainers. I heard that even a few gym leaders are here. Don't worry, they are just a few gym leaders. We are well prepared this time. Besides us, several other executives will also be here. Yes, I heard that the leader this time is Lord Apollo, and although there are gym leaders, the only one among them who really poses a threat to us is Nancy from the Gold Gym. Her Pokémon, with the help of her superpowers, can reach the level of the top kings, but we have made arrangements and there is no need to worry. Apollo is leading the team. It seems that this operation is safe. Apollo is as powerful as the 4 heavenly kings. Even if Nancy uses all her strength, she can't be Apollo's opponent. Among the rest, only Yulongchun from the Smokescreen Gym has some strength. Apollo and the remaining cotters are enough to deal with them. If you look closely, you will notice that there is a red letter R embroidered on these people's black clothes. After a long speech, the venue returned to its original state, with people eating, drinking and talking about whatever they wanted. Kamizile and Zai also stopped fighting and chatted on the side. Hey! Zai, you haven't got any badge yet? Why? Well, because my strength is far from enough, I have seen the gym trainers go all out. In order to really fight with them, I plan to practice for a while first. I see, you are really interesting. Kamasure couldn't help but look sideways when he heard Zai's answer. So you are here, Sunday suddenly came holding a blue elf, and then greeted Kamasure beside her. Hello Miss Kamasure, my name is Yuto Sunday, and I'm Zai's friend. She was very polite when she greeted, but she vaguely separated Zai aside. Hello Sunday, I'm Kamasura. Since Zai's friends are here, I'll leave first. I wish you have fun. After talking with Sunday for a while, Kamasura immediately realized something and left with a smile in his eyes. Sunday, why are you here? I remember the dance wasn't supposed to start for a while. Of course I came to practice with you first, otherwise what if you stepped on me while we were dancing? Sunday replied. In fact, the main reason was that she saw Zai and the famous female model chatting happily, which aroused Sunday's vigilance. Is that so? Don't worry. I remember that the dance at the party was ballroom dancing, which my mother taught me before. Really? Sunday was a little surprised. What she said before was just a casual remark. In fact, she was sure that she would not be stepped on by Zai, and she could also teach him how to dance while dancing. However, she was quite surprised that Zai had learned it before. But this is just one of the reasons. The main reason is that my parents want to meet you. Uncle and aunt want to see me. Yeah, Sunday nodded in response, but he sighed slightly in his heart. In fact, he didn't want Zai to meet his parents so soon. His mother was easy to deal with, but his father was difficult. If he hadn't accidentally mentioned Xiaozai when talking to them, and because of Kamizra, he wouldn't want to bring Xiaozai to meet his parents so early. Speaking of which, Sunday, is that the water leap fish you're holding? Xiaozai pointed at the blue elf in Sunday's arms and asked. Well, I just bought this child. Is that so? Hello, water leap fish. Pika Pikachu. Cola Cola. Xiaozai and Pikachu waved at the aquaponics, and the aquaponics raised its hand in response. And Kamizra, who had been talking to Xiaozai before, also returned to her good friend Fenglu. Chapter 34, Battle against Team Rocket. Kami, you finally came to see me. Sorry, when I saw someone who could train electric-type Pokémon so well, I couldn't help but want to talk to him, Kamizra said a little embarrassedly. Hehe, Kami, what do you think of that boy named Xiaozai? Fenglu asked teasingly. Ouch! Kamizlay raised his hand and gently tapped Fenglu's head, saying, What are you thinking about? How could I have such thoughts about someone I just met not long ago, and he has a girlfriend? No way. Hey! Long time no see, Miss Kamizray, the leader of the Withered Leaf Gym walked over and said. Long time no see, Mazishi. By the way, who is this? Kamizra asked the blue-haired girl next to Mazishi. Nice to meet you. I'm Yulongtsuna, the gym leader of the Smokescreen Gym. You can just call me Xiaotsuna, the blue-haired girl introduced herself. Kamizray, nice to meet you, Ms. Tsubaki. I am Kamizray, the gym trainer of Raven Gym. Fenglu, this is my first meeting too. I'm Fenglu, the gym trainer of the Fukuyom Gym. Haha, Miss Nancy from the Golden Gym was here too, but she's a bit of a loner and didn't come. At this time, Naji was sitting at the dining table drinking red wine. Her cold expression and the temperament of an icy beauty kept people at a distance, so that no one around dared to approach her. Originally, Nancy had no interest in this party, but she could not resist her mother's pleading. She also knew that her mother wanted her to make more friends, but she had powerful superpowers since she was a child, so she was often treated like a monster. Over time, she developed this cold personality and became unwilling to interact with others. At this time, a waiter came over and added red wine to Naz. Naz didn't care much, so she didn't notice the sneer on the waiter's face when he left. Oh my, is this the one that Sunday mentioned Xiaozai? Our Sunday really has good taste. At this time, Shenday led Xiaozai to his parents. Shenday's mother was a noble lady with black hair and fair skin, and the middle-aged man who was looking at Xiaozai with an unhappy face was Shenday's father. Hello, uncle and aunt. Hey, kid, I heard that you will also participate in this quartz conference. Let me tell you, if you don't win the championship this time, I won't recognize you in Sheng, ah. Shenday's father was stepped on by Shenday's mother before he could finish his words. Oh. It turns out that Xiaozai also participated in the quartz conference. I wonder how many badges he has obtained now. Asked Sunday's mother. In fact, I haven't even got one yet. What? You haven't even got one yet? This time, Sunday glared back at him, and he couldn't help but sigh in his heart, girls can't be kept when they grow up. Well, my current strength is not enough, so I plan to hone my skills before challenging the gym. So that's how it is. Xiaozai is really ambitious, Shenday's mother praised. Tisk, you little brat who only knows how to speak sweet words, Shenday's father muttered softly. At this time, a beautiful music sounded. People around put down what they were doing, held the hands of people they were familiar with or who they liked, and danced to the music. The dance party began. Then let's go dancing first, Sunday took Xiaozai's hand and walked away. Sunday mother, have fun. Father Sunday, TT. At the venue, men and women were holding each other's hands and dancing on the spot. I didn't expect you to be so good at this. Xiaozai was holding Sunday's slender waist with one hand and holding her delicate hand with the other, walking lightly. Sunday also moved in coordination with his movements. She had a faint smile on her face. She thought she still needed to teach him, but now it seems that not only she didn't need to, but she was the one who needed to cooperate with him. Pikachu was watching and eating food at the table in the back. Before I left, my mother taught me a lot of things, including ballroom dancing. She said I might need it in the future, but I originally thought it would be impossible for me to use it. If you really become a Pokémon master in the future, you will definitely be invited to many parties like today. Even if you want to refuse, there will always be a time when you have to go. I have to say that your aunt is really amazing. After all, she was able to educate Satoshi to be so versatile. Yeah, it looks pretty good. While dancing with Sunday's father, Sunday's mother was still observing Zai from time to time. Father Sunday, wow, you damned little brat, how dare you kidnap my daughter? I've made it clear to you in advance that we can't interfere with our daughter's happiness. No matter what the final result is, it must be based on Sunday's own wishes. Do you understand? Yes, I understand, ma'am. Fenglu, oh. That boy named Zai is quite capable, are you sure you don't want to give it a try, Kami? Fenglu was holding her best friend's hand and dancing like the people around them. Kamislay, if you say that again, I will hit you again, Fenglu. Although he said that, his eyes still looked over there unconsciously. Boom. Suddenly there was a violent explosion on the ship, and the entire ship shook. What happened? What happens? Where did it explode? Are you okay, Sunday? Zai helped Sunday up after he fell to the ground, and Pikachu also ran to Zai's side. I'm fine, but what happened? Sunday stood up and shook his head and asked. Bang bang bang. Before Zai could reply, many men in black smashed the windows and rushed in. The door was kicked open and many men in black also rushed in. Some people quickly changed their clothes. In the blink of an eye, the people in the hall were surrounded. The letter R on the men in black's clothes revealed their identities. Everyone, nice to meet you. I am Poseidon, one of the 12 leaders of Team Rocket. Now please hand over your Pokémon and cooperate, otherwise I cannot guarantee your safety. You guys, Team Rocket, are so bold. Do you really think everyone here is a pushover? Go ahead, Haxorus. At this time, Xiao Chun from the smokescreen gym stood up and sent out his Pokémon. That's right, you bad guys, it's impossible for us to hand over our Pokémon, come on, Rattata. Let's go to, Vulpix. Go, strange power. With Xiao Chun taking the lead, the others also felt more confident and sent out their Pokémon to fight. Zai and Sunday also released their Pokémon. The war is about to start. Chapter 35, Fierce Battle on the Saint Anne. Golbat uses Air Slash. Jewel Starfish Water Gun. Arbok attacks with poison needles. Electric Beast uses 100,000 volts. The battle between the trainers and Team Rocket has begun, but what can truly determine the outcome of the battle is the battle between the gym leaders and Team Rocket executives. Hakron uses 100,000 volts. Gyarados attacks with water cannon. The powerful lightning collided with the huge water column, and there was a stalemate for a while. Xiao Chun was commanding his Haxorus to fight against Poseidon's Gyarados. Gyarados uses Freeze Fang. Hakron evades and continues to use 100,000 volts. Gyarados opened its mouth wide, its sharp teeth emitting a cold air, and rushed straight towards Haxorus. However, Haxorus used its slender body to flexibly dodge Gyarados' attacks. When its attack missed, Haxorus went around Gyarados and emitted 100,000 volts from its horns. Faced with this sudden attack, Poseidon calmly commanded, use the water tail. Upon hearing the order, Gyarados stretched out its tail without hesitation, and sprayed circles of water from its tail to block the 100,000 volt attack. Seeing the other party respond so calmly, Xiao Chun also realized how difficult the other party was, and the situation was deadlocked for a while. Several other gym leaders also encountered strong enemies. Ma Zishi was commanding his Reisha to fight against a yellow-haired man using the X-Bat. Master Ma Zishi, your strength is not good enough. Heh, don't be complacent Hermes, I haven't tried my best yet. Kamizile and Fenglu were also stopped by a woman with long red hair. Electric Dragon uses 100,000 volts, Chief Swan uses water waves. Golden Lightning and Blue Water Balls attacked a duck-billed monster in front of the red-haired woman. Duck-billed Flame Dragon uses a jet of flame. The duck-billed Flame Dragon raised its arms that were like cannon barrels and sprayed out powerful flames, offsetting the attacks of the Electric Dragon and the Chief Swan. Fenglu, Tisk, it's really hard to deal with. Kami's Ray, as expected of Hephaestus, one of Team Rocket's 12 leaders. Boom! At this time, a flame not far away attracted everyone's attention. The Pokémon that launched the attack was a Pokémon that looked like a wolf with a pair of curved horns. It was black in color, had sharp teeth, and a very ferocious expression. Facing that Pokémon was a Pokémon that held 2 soup spoons, had a beard, and had a head like a fox. After defeating some of the surrounding Team Rocket members together with Sunday, Zai's eyes also turned to the 2 Pokémon confronting each other. It's Houndoom and Alakazam. Satoshi recognized these 2 Pokémon. Judging from the power they unleashed, both Pokémon are probably at the peak of the elite level. Zai couldn't help but look curiously at the trainers behind the 2 Pokémon. Behind Alakazam was a beautiful woman with long purple hair. Her expression was indifferent, and the bright red long dress showed off her curvy body to the fullest. What Zai cared about most was that her eyes were emitting blue light. He felt that the beauty seemed to be emitting a strange energy that was transmitted to Alakazam. Behind Houndoom was a handsome man with blue hair. He is Apollo. Ma Zishi on the side also noticed the battle over there. When he saw the blue-haired man, he couldn't help but exclaimed. Team Rocket has really spent a lot of money this time. I didn't expect that even Apollo would be dispatched. I wonder if Master Nancy is okay. Poisonous fangs of the crossbat. Reishu, get out of the way. Hermes took advantage of Ma Zishi's attention and ordered the crossbat to attack. Fortunately, Ma Zishi reacted quickly and let Reishu dodge the attack in time. Master Ma Zishi, it's not good to be distracted during a battle. Ma Zishi's eyes were somewhat solemn. He didn't expect that even though his attributes were superior, he could not pose a threat to Hermes's crossbat. Master Nancy has superpowers, so even if she can't defeat Apollo, she won't be defeated so easily. We still have to defeat the enemy in front of us first, Ma Zishi muttered to himself, and then devoted himself to the battle in front of him. As expected of Nancy's gym leader, this powerful superpower can actually elevate Alakazam, who originally only had high-level king strength, to the peak of king in one fell swoop, Apollo praised. Alakazam uses electric wave. Facing Apollo's praise, Nancy directed the attack with a cold expression. Haraga uses the wave of evil. The black energy waves that came out of Houndoom's mouth collided with Alakazam's electric shock waves, producing a large amount of smoke. Alakazam suddenly disappeared on the spot and appeared behind Houndoom. Shine with magic. Hero's priority. The soup spoons in Alakazam's hands emitted a pink light. A dazzling pink light shot out, and Houndoom's eyes lit up with a blue light. He dodged sideways without even turning his head, and the magic flash passed directly by. Haraga turns around and uses Crunch. Teleport. Houndoom's teeth were covered with evil energy, and he turned around and bit Alakazam, but Alakazam calmly used instant movement to dodge. Alakazam uses Destruction Ray. Since Psychic-type special moves have no effect on Dark-type Houndoom, he can only use special moves of other attributes. Faced with the huge golden beam of light, Houndoom directly used his defense to resist. Nancy used her superpowers to offset the negative effects of the destructive death light, and at the same time found something strange. She could feel that Apollo had not used his full strength from beginning to end, as if he was deliberately delaying time. Apollo looked at Nancy calmly, and thought to himself, it's almost time. Mound. After Pikachu electrocuted yet another group of Team Rocket members, Ash looked in Apollo's direction with some confusion. What's wrong? Sunday, who was standing by, asked curiously when he saw Zai turning his attention over there. I was wondering why the Rocket member who used Houndoom didn't try his best. What did you say? Are you saying he didn't use his full strength? Sunday was a little surprised. After all, the battle over there was quite intense. Maybe you felt it wrong. I know that guy's opponent. She is the owner of the Golden Gym, Nancy. That is the second gym in Kanto. I have investigated before. Nancy is a king-level gym. It is already very powerful for the Rocket team to be able to compete with her. If he is really that strong, then he has the strength of the 4 heavenly kings. I don't know either, I just feel like, At this time the battle situation changed again. Most of the Team Rocket members had been defeated by the attacks of several powerful trainers, but the gym leaders were also at a disadvantage. Haraga uses Jet Fire. Alakazam uses Teleportation. It was the same trick as before, but just as Nancy was about to continue giving orders, she suddenly felt her head sink and almost fell. Apollo immediately seized the opportunity and commanded Houndoom to use the wave of evil. Even more powerful evil energy than before condensed in his mouth, and a powerful wave of evil spurted out. Because Nancy's energy supply to Alakazam suddenly stopped and Nancy's command did not arrive, by the time he reacted, the powerful wave of evil had already hit him. The force was even stronger than before, making Alakazam unable to fight directly. Seeing this, Apollo smiled evilly. Haraga uses Jet Flame. This time, the scorching flames no longer attacked Alakazam, but aimed at Nancy, who was struggling to hold on. Not good. Ms. Nazi. The people around couldn't help but exclaim. Facing the raging fire, Nancy suddenly felt sad. In her childhood, she was always treated as a monster because of her superpowers. Her parents also kept training their superpowers and paid little attention to her. This made Nancy live in loneliness for a long time. Originally, her parents came to the party on this Saint Anne to let her change her mood, but she didn't expect that everything is over now. Chapter 36, The Sinking of the Saint Anne. Just as Nancy closed her eyes and prepared to face death, a figure suddenly rushed to Nancy. Under her surprised gaze, the other party threw herself to the ground and barely avoided the attack of the jet of flames. "Are you okay, Miss Nancy?" The warm breath blew on Naz's face, making her cheeks, which were slightly red due to the medicine, even redder. Nancy opened her eyes and saw a determined face. The other person helped her up and looked at Apollo seriously and dignifiedly. Nancy immediately collected herself and stood up shakily. "Haha, you are such a reckless brat. Since you like being a hero saving a beauty so much, I will let you die with the beauty." Hey Loli uses Jet Flames. Houndoom used Flame Jet again, and Sunday on the other side saw it and quickly ordered the Pokémon to provide support. Pikachu's 100,000 volts, Charmeleon's Flame Jet, Seathorn's Water Gun, Sonic Larva's Dragon Breath, Garagara's Bone Boomerang, Radon's Rock Seal, Nidoqueen's Freezing Ray and Aqualad's Water Gun, and Nancy, who was still in Ash's arms, also tried her best to mobilize her superpowers. 9 attacks barely blocked Houndoom's jet of fire, but the greatest contribution came from Nancy's telekinesis. Since Monkey King lacked long-range attacks, he jumped directly in front of Satoshi and Nancy and used his defense to help block the aftermath. After the attack, the Pokémon rushed to Ash's side, and Sunday also ran over. "You are too arrogant, are you injured anywhere?" "Sorry, I'm fine, thanks to you and Pikachu." After Nancy took back Alakazam, she frowned slightly when she heard what Zai and Sunday said, but she didn't care too much. "Oh, do you think you can fight me just by your numbers?" Apollo sneered. Haraga's surprise attack. Houndoom instantly left the spot, turned into black light and knocked the monkey monster in front away. Then he turned around, opened his mouth and was about to spit out fire, but a sudden column of water hit Houndoom, and he was caught off guard and knocked back by the water column. Apollo looked in the direction of the attack and found that it was a sturdy Blastoise, and behind it stood a hedgehog-headed boy, with a Luna next to him, and around them were members of Team Rocket and Pokémon lying on the ground. The boy walked straight over, and Zai looked at him and found that it was the person who had looked at him before. "Who are you?" Apollo asked with a frown. "Oh, you are worthy of knowing my name." "Okay, you're good." This arrogant tone made the usually calm Apollo feel a little furious. "Haraga will take care of them first, use the wave of evil." Bless the water cannon, Luna uses Shadow Ball, and then Electabuzz uses Thunder. Even though he was very disdainful of Apollo, he was very clear about the gap between himself and the opponent, so while letting Blastoise and Luna attack, he also released his own electric beast to fight back together. The 4 attacks collided, causing a huge explosion. Hippopotamus uses Water Cannon, a cold voice sounded at this time. Nancy on the side took advantage of Apollo's distraction to release her own hippopotamus to attack, and the powerful water cannon once again repelled Houndoom. "Everyone, attack now!" Zai took advantage of this opportunity to let his Pokémon attack. The hedgehog-headed boy immediately seized this opportunity and ordered his 3 Pokémon to attack. Various energy beams hit Houndoom directly before it came to its senses. A burst of black smoke dissipated, and the powerful Houndoom finally fell. At this time, the battle situations in several other places also changed. Arcane with Flame Fang. A large dog Pokémon bit down hard on Hermes's crossbat with its flaming teeth. Take advantage of this opportunity to use Raish's Thunderbolt. Back off, Wind Speed Dog. Windy loosened its teeth and retreated quickly, and just as Crossbat adjusted its body, a strong electric shock struck Crossbat, and after the lightning, Crossbat staggered and fell from the air. Hermes looked gloomily at the blue-haired man behind Arden. I didn't expect Mr. Sasaki Kojiro to have such strength. It's really surprising. Kojiro, thank you. I really like Pokémon. This kid is my childhood playmate. I have invested a lot of resources in him. Mazishi, thank you for your help, Mr. Kojiro. Gyarados uses Destruction Ray. Come on, Ranran Wang, use your counter punch. Su Nancy. The destroying death beam hit a blue Pokémon directly, and that Pokémon emitted colorful light, then forcefully pushed the destroying death beam back. Roar! The destructive death light that bounced back hit Gyarados in the face. The powerful attack made Gyarados roar, and then he fell straight down. You are Miss Miyamoto Musashi. Xiao Chun was a little surprised to see the person coming, which made her ignore the fact that Musashi's previous instruction was to return the punch. Boom! The huge duck-billed flame dragon fell to the ground, while the electric dragon and the chief swan on the opposite side were also gasping for breath. Feng Lu, hi! I finally defeated him. Calm as Ray, give up, Team Rocket. Apollo looked at the situation around him and couldn't help but sneer, haha, good job, but you don't think we only have one Pokémon? Saying that, he was about to reach for his waist. Boom! Suddenly the ship shook violently and the people who were fighting fell down one after another. Sunday sat on the ground, and Nancy lost her balance and knocked down Xiaozai who was supporting her. Xiaozai suddenly felt a soft touch on his face, followed by a feeling of suffocation. You, what are you doing? Sunday, who was just standing up, couldn't help but exclaimed when he saw this. Nancy also felt her breasts pressing against Xiaozai's head, and their current posture was a bit ambiguous. She was trying to support herself with her hands to get up, but due to the effects of the drug, Nancy felt groggy and had no strength in her body. She could only put her hands weakly on the ground. But Xiaozai did not lie there stupidly, or it could be said that Xiaozai did not even think about taking advantage of Nancy while lying there. Instead, he stretched out his head, exerted force on his waist, and quickly stood up. However, since Nancy was completely powerless, she could only cling to Xiaozai. Xiaozai was very nice to Pokémon and people who did not disgust him, even if you were a stranger, so he just picked Nancy up horizontally. Are you okay, Miss Nancy? I'm fine. Xiaozai's action also made Sunday feel a little jealous. She had never been hugged by Xiaozai before, and it was a princess hug. And what's with your gentle tone? Although Nancy, who was held by Xiaozai, still had no expression and looked indifferent, only she knew how fast her heart was beating. She looked at Xiaozai's handsome and determined face, and a strange emotion grew in her heart. What's going on? Apollo, who had just stood up, ignored the ambiguous situation over there and asked. It's bad, everyone. The hull of the Saint Anne has been attacked by lightning, and with the severe storm outside, the entire ship has begun to sink. A soldier from Team Rocket rushed in and said. What? Chapter 37. Raging Sea. Apollo, Tisk, you guys are lucky this time, everyone retreat. Then, Team Rocket retreated from the hall at lightning speed, and the people who reacted also ran out in a hurry, and the scene was in chaos for a while. Let's go too. Xiaozai immediately shouted to Sunday beside him, and she nodded immediately. They immediately took out the Pokeballs and collected all the Pokémon except Pikachu. Finally, Xiaozai picked up Nancy, whose face was still a little flushed, and ran out, and Sunday hurriedly followed. Hey! Don't push, get out of the way. What are you doing? Don't push me. At this time, the outside was in chaos. The guests who had been gentle, modest, and polite at the dance party no longer cared about their face and rushed to the lifeboat outside. Boom! At this moment, there was a huge explosion in the sky, which attracted everyone's attention. They saw Yulong Chun riding on Hawk Long. He used thunder and flame spray at the same time, causing a huge explosion and attracting everyone's attention. If you don't line up properly, don't blame me for being rude. Yulong Chun stared grimly at the distinguished guests in formal attire below, not caring about their identities at all. Everyone, if you continue like this, many people will be squeezed and fall off, or get injured before we reach the lifeboat. You may be among them. Please show your status and manners and line up properly. The elderly and children will get on the lifeboat first, followed by the female guests, and finally the gentlemen. At this time, Kojiro stood up and said to everyone. Under the coordination of these two people, one playing the good cop and the other the bad cop, the originally chaotic scene suddenly became quiet. At this time, the captain also ran out and shouted to everyone, "It will take at least 2 hours for this ship to sink completely. Everyone has plenty of time to get into the lifeboats one by one. Don't worry about not having enough space on the lifeboats. The lifeboats on the ship are specially designed according to the number of guests. There is no problem in accommodating everyone, so please line up properly, okay?" With the captain's comfort, everyone began to line up in an orderly manner according to the method that Xia Xilang had mentioned before. The gym masters and some prominent figures also stepped forward to organize order. At this time, Xiao Du and his friends met Shendai's parents. "Are you okay? Are you injured anywhere?" Shendai's father checked on Shendai in a panic. Sundai shook his head and said, "Don't worry, I'm fine." Seeing that their daughter was indeed fine, the couple couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. "Ms. Naz, are you okay?" At this moment, Ma Zishi, Fenglu and Kamislay also discovered Nancy being held by Zai, and ran over hurriedly with some worry. Seeing them coming over, Zai shook his head at them and said, "Don't worry, Miss Napo seems to be just a little weak due to the medication." Everyone was relieved to see that Nancy's face was just a little flushed and there seemed to be nothing wrong with other parts of her body. "Leave her to us to take care of her," said Ma Zishi on the side. Although they were not familiar with Nancy, they were all gym leaders after all, and had just fought side by side, so the concern on their faces was not fake. Seeing this, Zai nodded slightly and handed Nancy to Ma Zishi. "No need." At this moment, Nancy, who was in Zai's arms, suddenly spoke. "Ms. Naz, are you okay?" Everyone looked and found that Nancy had opened her eyes at some point, although there was no expression in her eyes. Nancy looked at Zai and said, "Can you put me down first?" Okay, Zai immediately put her gently on the ground after hearing the other party's words. And it turned out that there was nothing serious wrong with her. The blush on her face had disappeared at some point, and she could stand and walk like a normal person. "Are you okay now, Miss Nazi?" Feng Lu, who was standing by, couldn't help but ask curiously. Nancy just nodded silently and said, "Except for the superpowers, which cannot be used yet, everything else is fine." "Okay, let's go and line up quickly," Kamisra said to everyone when he saw that Nancy was indeed fine. "That's right, we should leave as soon as possible." Bump! What? Suddenly, a huge wave hit the cruise ship, causing it to shake violently and the crowd tottering again. Zai and the others were also very embarrassed by the sudden vibration. "What? Sunday?" At this moment, a familiar voice came from behind. Zai immediately turned around and found that Sunday was nowhere to be seen, and his parents were leaning on the railing and shouting down. Zai reacted immediately, and in everyone's astonished eyes, he ran to the railing and jumped down, and Pikachu immediately followed. Zai. Seeing Zai actually jump off the cruise ship like that, Kamisra couldn't help but shout out and immediately ran to the railing to look down. "That little brat is really messing around." The other museum owners also hurried over. When they got there, everyone found that Zai had taken out his sea dragon at some point. Pikachu grabbed the clothes on his shoulders, hugged the sea dragon, took a deep breath, and dived to the bottom of the sea. Not only the sea surface, the environment on the seabed is also quite harsh. For some reason, there are all kinds of turbulent currents everywhere. If you are not careful, you may be swept away by these turbulent currents. At this time, Zai, who had already dived into the sea, immediately spotted Sunday. She was covering her neck with one hand, and her hands and feet were moving around. Without Zai's command, Sea Dragon immediately took Zai and swam towards Sunday. After reaching Sunday, Zai reached out his hands, hugged her body, and then commanded Sea Dragon to float upwards. At this moment, Zai suddenly felt Sunday pulling his clothes harder and harder, and he immediately realized that the other party was seriously lacking in oxygen. Without saying a word, he kissed Sunday's cherry lips. Even Pikachu and Sea Dragon couldn't help but open their eyes wide with disbelief in their eyes. Sunday, who successfully received oxygen, gradually regained consciousness. He felt his lips touching something soft and slightly thick, and he couldn't help but open his eyes. What came into view was Zai's face, which was very close to him. Sunday realized what he was doing and subconsciously pushed the other person away, his face instantly turning red. However, Zai didn't have time to think so much. After seeing that the other party had regained consciousness, he immediately hugged her and commanded the sea dragon to float to the surface of the sea. As soon as he could breathe fresh air again, Zai immediately commanded Sea Dragon to swim towards the lifeboat in front and handed Sunday to a sailor on the lifeboat. At this time, Sunday was still immersed in the accident and had not reacted. What? Pick up! Suddenly, the screams of Zai and Pikachu brought her back to her senses. Ash! She saw Zai and Sea Dragon sinking again for some unknown reason, and was about to jump in as well, but was held tightly by the sailor beside her. At this moment, huge waves hit the lifeboats and made them drift everywhere. The crews of each boat immediately opened the lifeboats. Fortunately, everyone successfully entered the lifeboats. Of course, except... Okay, stop messing around, Sunday. But Zai. Sunday looked at his father with red eyes, holding the sides of his clothes tightly with both hands. Zai, what's wrong? At this time, all the gym leaders also came over, even the hedgehog-headed boy came over. Sunday's mother immediately explained the situation to everyone, and after hearing about Zai's story, everyone looked outside in disbelief. At this time, there was a strong wind on the sea, thunder clouds were rolling, and the waves were surging one after another. In such an environment, there is almost no need to say what the consequences would be if one fell into the sea. Sheng slumped on the ground with a look of despair on his face. Kamizile and Fenglu couldn't help but cover their mouths with their hands. Nancy's body staggered involuntarily. At this moment, the hedgehog-headed boy spoke first. That guy has a water-based sea dragon in his hand. Although the environment is harsh, there is still hope of survival, and the Alliance's rescue team will be here soon. As his companions, what you should do is not to be dejected here, but to believe that he is still alive and not give up hope of rescue. It was obvious that his topic had a great effect. Everyone looked at the sea with hope, praying silently in their hearts that Zai would be safe. At this time, in the dark sea, Zai and Pikachu closed their eyes and their bodies were slowly sinking, while the sea dragon beside them tried its best to take them out, but there seemed to be a special gravitational force, and it couldn't move them at all. At this moment, a bright silver light flew towards Zai and the others at an extremely fast speed, instantly enveloping their figures. The silver light then carried Zai and the others quickly in one direction. Zai, who was in a half-asleep and half-awake state, felt as if a big white bird flew past him. Then, he felt sleepy and his consciousness gradually dissipated, and he fell into a deep sleep. At this time, on a beach, a black-haired boy of about 15 or 16 was staring blankly at the man and his pet in front of him. Let me ask you, what should I do if I find a protagonist when I go out? Chapter 38. Awakening. In the pitch-black darkness, dirty mud flowed all over the ground, and the boundless darkness seemed to have no end. Zai opened his mouth and wanted to shout something, but no sound came out. Then he saw a figure stuck in the mud. He moved closer and found that the person struggling in the mud was actually himself. The mud had already submerged his mouth. He tried hard to raise his head, but the mud seemed to have life and kept crawling towards his face. Zai felt that he couldn't breathe, he began to struggle, but everything seemed in vain. Just when his body was about to sink completely into the mud, a dazzling white light suddenly emitted from his chest, and a silver feather floated out from his chest. In an instant, this dark world was illuminated by strong white light, and Zai couldn't help but close his eyes. When he opened his eyes again, what he saw was a bright starry sky with heat and flames emanating from the left side. Based on the feeling on his body, Zai found that he was only wearing a pair of underwear and was covered with his own quilt. Zai couldn't help but turn his head to look over and found a bonfire. Opposite the bonfire sat a boy about his age, who was recording something with a pen and a notebook. As if he sensed something, the man raised his head and looked in Zai's direction, and found that the other party was staring at him blankly. Are you awake? Li Xiaoyang noticed that the other party was looking at him. He was stunned for a moment and then spoke. Zai nodded silently, then he used his arms to support his body. Only then did he realize that Pikachu was sleeping quietly on his stomach. Zai gently picked up Pikachu, placed it on his left side, and gently covered it with a blanket. Your clothes, Li Xiaoyang said. Then he threw a pile of clothes to Zai, who hurriedly took them and found that the clothes that should have been wet were already dry. Thank you. After thanking Li Xiaoyang, Zai quickly started to put on his clothes. At this time Li Xiaoyang also stood up, walked towards Zai, and said half-jokingly, to be honest, if you don't wake up tomorrow, I plan to throw you back into the sea and pretend that I have never seen you. Forward. Xiao Ji didn't know how to respond to Li Xiaoyang's words, so he just ignored them and asked him, where is this place? How long have I been sleeping? And may I ask who you are? I will answer all your questions, but first can you tell me why you fainted on the beach? Oh, this is actually the case. Zai opened his mouth and explained to the other party what happened. After hearing what the other party said, Li Xiaoyang understood what happened, but his brows couldn't help but frowned, muttering to himself, it seems that this person is indeed Zai, but I don't remember this plot in the original work, and it seems that Xiao Gang and Zioxia didn't seem to be with him. But it's true, after all, this seems to be just a similar parallel world, it's normal for the plot to be different. But floating here directly from the place where the Saint Anne sank seems a bit outrageous, right? It seems that even in this parallel world, Zai is undoubtedly the protagonist of this world. Excuse me, what's wrong with you? Seeing Li Xiaoyang touching his chin and thinking about something, Zai couldn't help but ask curiously. Oh, nothing, it just feels a bit weird. Weird? By the way, I'm Satoshi from Pallet Town, and this is my partner Pikachu, Satoshi said. I'm Xiaoyang from Viridian City. Xiaoyang is his name in this world. After all, he didn't know if there were any surnames like the Dragon Country in this world, so he simply gave himself a name like Ash, Brock and Misty. As for your other two questions, first, this place is called Lanling Island. I am currently training on this island with my Pokémon. Second, you have probably slept for almost a day. I found you on the beach this morning. One day. Wait a minute. Xiaoyang, you said this is Lanling Island, right? Yeah, do you know this island? Xiaoyang asked in some surprise. After all, according to his impression, the stupid Xiaoji couldn't possibly know that there was such an island. This Zai seems to be smarter and more cautious than the one in the original book. After all, according to my impression of Zai, when he heard that I came to this island to practice with Pokémon, he might have directly challenged me to a Pokémon battle, instead of the current situation. But it makes sense. After all, not only did Musashi and Kojiro not join Team Rocket, but one became a big star and the other directly inherited the family property. It seems quite reasonable for Satoshi to have such a change. A moment later, Xiaoyang was flipping through a notebook, while Zai was sitting quietly on the side. After listening to Zai's explanation, Xiaoyang also understood the situation of Zai in this world. At this moment, he was flipping through the notebook that Hanako gave him. The contents inside surprised Xiaoyang a little. There were a lot of very practical contents, and many of them he had never even heard of. After reading it carefully for a while, Xiaoyang silently put down the notes in his hand and said with some emotion, I thought you would have a hard time without Professor Oak. Facts have proved that I was too naive. The protagonist is the protagonist. God closes a door for you, but also opens a window for you. Moreover, this window is even bigger than the door. This thing is totally a little golden finger. He closed the notebook and handed it to Zai. What are you talking about, Xiaoyang? I don't quite understand. After taking the note, Zai asked curiously. Xiaoyang said in a somewhat sour tone, Xiaoji, do you know? If it were me a year ago, I might have found a way to kill you and then take your notebook away. Before Zai could speak, Xiaoyang continued, do you know how valuable this notebook is to others, especially to an ordinary trainer like me? I can tell you without exaggeration that if it were a greedier guy, even if he wouldn't kill you, he would try his best to steal this notebook. I don't know how many ambitious people would flock to it because it contains not only detailed records of many mythical beasts, but also records and production methods of many precious items. Like the recipe for a potion that lets Pokémon evolve into their emerald form, and how to make these special candies. There's even a recipe for a master ball. Although the legendary beasts in this world are a bit out of control, there's still plenty useful for capturing those third-level gods. Any one of these is worth tens of millions, or even priceless. Xiaoyang said a little madly. is it that exaggerated? Zai said with some doubt. After all, he had shown this notebook to Sunday. Although she also said that it was a priceless treasure, she was not as exaggerated as Xiao Yang. What Zai didn't know was that Sunday had only carefully read the travel notes before. Her focus was on the events during the trip, and she had roughly schemed over the rest. As a Blue Star person who was familiar with the original work, Xiao Yang naturally focused on the key points. Zai. I've made my decision. Xiao Yang suddenly stood up and spoke to Zai. Hey? What's wrong? Zai, let's go traveling together from now on. Hey? Hey. Chapter 39, Confrontation with Xiao Yang. Charmer Dinosaur uses flame jets. Pidot uses hold. The Charmeleon on the ground spewed blazing fire at the flying Pidgeot, and a green protective shield was erected around Pidgeot to keep the flames out. Use Yanfan on the top. Attack with Dragon Claws. Pidgeot swooped down at an extremely fast speed, and dragon energy emerged from Charmeleon's claws, condensing into a green dragon claw. He swung the claw and grabbed Pidgeot that was rushing towards him. With the help of the force of the dive, the moment Pidgeot's swallow return collided with Charmeleon's claws, Charmeleon was pushed a distance away. Charmeleon hurriedly used the other claw to barely stop the decline. The two were in a stalemate for a while before both retreated. Zai and Xiao Yang on the opposite side looked at each other. Let's leave it at that for today. It's getting late. It's time for us to prepare dinner, Xiao Yang said to Zai. Yeah, Zai nodded. Seeing this, Pidgeot and Charmeleon also stopped attacking. The Pokémon that were watching nearby ran over and surrounded them. Then, after saying something, they dispersed to play or exercise. Don't run too far, Zai shouted to the Pokémon that were running around, and then went to help Xiao Yang prepare tableware and ingredients. As night fell, Zai, Xiao Yang and a group of Pokémon were sitting around the fire, enjoying food in their bowls. Taking a sip of the soup in the bowl, Xiao Yang opened his eyes in surprise and said, "Your cooking skills are pretty good, Xiao Ji. Who did you learn from?" When Xiao Yang first heard that Zai was going to help cook, he was still a little worried, although this Zai was not the one he remembered. Fortunately, his worries were unnecessary. Although Zai's cooking skills were not top-notch, they were still very good. I learned this from my mother. Mom? I see. That's not surprising. After hearing Zai's answer, Xiao Yang nodded silently. But Xiao Yang, you are really amazing. Pidgeot and the others are all very strong. Zai couldn't help but look at Pidgeot and other pets who were wolfing down the food with emotion. Under the careful training of Hanako's mother, even though his own strength is not up to par, his eyesight is quite good. Among Xiaoyang's 6 Pokémon, Pidgeot is the strongest, reaching the advanced level of Quasai King. The rest are Venusaur, Scyther and Megalodon, which are at the intermediate level of Quasai King, and Flametongue and Lycanroc, which are at the junior level of Quasai King. Hearing Zai's sigh, Xiao Yang couldn't help but twitch his cheeks. He looked at Zai speechlessly and said, Zai, if I didn't know you well, I would give you a big shovel directly. Do you believe it? Oh, why? Zai looked at Xiao Yang with a puzzled look. It seemed that there was nothing wrong with what he had just said, right? Seeing this, Xiao Yang couldn't help but sigh silently and said, Xiao Ji, do you know? It has been 5 years since I started my journey. In 5 years, let alone the league competition, I haven't even successfully collected all the badges once. Xiao Yang looked up at the bright moon in the sky, put down the bowl and spoon in his hands, and continued, I specially captured Megalodon and Cat Boss when I came to Lanling Island. They were not Pokémon I trained at the beginning. It took me 5 years to bring Pidgeot and the other 2 to their current level. Although saying this may offend a lot of people, after all, many trainers in their 20s and 30s may not even have a Quasai King level Pokémon, but compared to those geniuses, I am still far behind. At this time, Xiao Yang turned to look at Zai and said, for example, you, Zai. Me? A genius. Zai pointed at himself in confusion, with confusion in his eyes. Xiao Yang nodded and said, that's right, Xiao Ji, you may not have realized it yourself, but you are actually very talented in fighting. I saw it when I was fighting you just now. Most trainers will always have problems such as slow reaction and improper command when they first start fighting. Except for a few geniuses, most people need a long adjustment period, which may take 2 to 3 months, or even half a year. Because most Pokémon's skills are released very quickly, what kind of skills should be used in what kind of situations? Many trainers will subconsciously think about this problem, but during battle, there is often not so much time to think. This leads to a common situation among novice trainers, giving orders too quickly and using the wrong skills, or giving orders too slowly and being taken advantage of by the enemy, which ultimately leads to defeat. And Zai, it seems like less than 2 months have passed since you set out. Hearing Xiao Yang's words, Xiao Ji couldn't help scratching his head and said, "Is that so? But I just use whatever skills I can think of, and it doesn't seem to be a problem. That's why I said you are a genius." Xiao Yang waved his hand and said, "If it were just that it would be fine, the key is that you can not only keep up with my rhythm, but also command the fire dinosaur that has entered the early stage of Quasi King." At this point, Xiao Yang reached out and grabbed Xiao Ji's shoulder. "Do you know how long it takes for a rookie trainer to command a Pokémon at the Quasi King level?" Before Zai could speak, Xiao Yang held up 3 fingers and said, 3 years. Normally, it takes 3 years for a trainer to grow into a true Quasi-elite trainer. Even the current champion, Snowjiao Ogai, is said to have taken 3 months to command Quasi-elite Pokémon. But it's been less than 2 months since your debut. If it were just that, it would be fine. The key is that you are not only extremely evil, but also extremely lucky. You started with a Pikachu that was at least an elite intermediate level, and then encountered an elite peak Charmander, and it was actually a shiny one, an elite primary level Monkey King, and an elite intermediate level Sea Dragon. Did you know that it took me more than a year to reach your initial strength? And now Monkey King is already an elite peak. After it evolves into Infernape, it will definitely become a true Quasi King level Pokémon. As for Sea Dragon, you just got it not long ago, so its strength has not changed much, and Pikachu and Charmeleon have already reached the Quasi King level. Is that how it is? Zai scratched his face somewhat awkwardly, feeling the increasing force on his shoulders. He knew very well that Xiao Yang was really excited right now. Fortunately, he had a good physique and did not feel much pain. After calming down, Xiao Yang sat back in his seat and said, "So do you understand how evil you are?" Zai nodded silently, but there was no happy expression on his face. Instead, he looked up and said, "Although this is the case, I am still far from enough." "Xiao Yang, do you remember what I told you about meeting that hedgehog head on the Saint N?" "Certainly." Hearing Zai's question, Xiao Yang couldn't help but curl his lips. "How could I not know? Listening to your description and the Pokémon the other party used, I can guess the other party's identity with my eyes closed. That guy must be your rival and childhood sweetheart, Shigeru Oki, in the original world line." Chapter 40, Powerful Fire. The flame was still burning, making a sizzling sound. Zai stared with a pair of sparkling eyes and said, "Although I don't know why the opponent always makes me feel strange, his strength is much stronger than mine. He has successfully entered the King level Blastoise, plus the Quasi King level Electra and Umbreon. Obviously, we should be about the same age, but facing him, I feel powerless." At this point, Zai couldn't help but clench his fists, his eyes becoming more determined. "If I want to win the league competition, this is the hurdle I must overcome." Seeing Zai like this, Xiao Yang couldn't help but remain silent. The food beside him had already gone cold, but he didn't feel like eating it now. Xiao Yang didn't doubt Zai's words at all, but still found it a little unbelievable. "I didn't expect that the Xiaomao in this world is so powerful." Through the understanding of this world in the past few years, Xiao Yang is quite clear that if Pokémon wants to move from the most ordinary novice stage to the Quasi King level, it requires a lot of resources and training. Normally, as long as you work hard, it is only a matter of time to become a Quasi King, but it is different for the King. If you want to go from a Quasi King to a King, it is not something that can be solved by resources and training. I heard from a senior that this requires an opportunity, but where does such an opportunity come from? I don't know. This thing is very mysterious, a bit like the epiphany in the world of cultivation. Xiao Yang once asked the senior a question: if it takes enlightenment to go from a semi-king to a king, then why don't those legendary Pokémon need it? I heard that many of them are already kings or even champions from the moment they are born. The explanation given by the senior was, physique and divine power. The legendary Pokémon all have a bit of divinity to a greater or lesser extent, and possessing divinity also means that they have a certain amount of divine power contained in their bodies. This divine power can improve their physical constitution and allow them to have a body that can accommodate king-level energy from birth. To put it simply, the physique of legendary Pokémon is enough for them to absorb energy to support themselves to the corresponding level, but ordinary Pokémon cannot do this. They do not have the power of God to transform their body. Most Pokémon cannot move forward after reaching the peak of Quasi-King. This is also one of the differences between ordinary Pokémon and legendary Pokémon. Even those quasi-divine beasts can rarely directly enter the king level by relying on resources and accumulation. Therefore, elite-level trainers are quite rare in the entire Pokémon world. An enlightenment actually means that the Pokémon changes from simply absorbing energy to transform its physique, causing its already saturated body to undergo a qualitative change and be able to accommodate more energy. Of course, in addition to these, there is actually another way, which is to directly use items with divine power, such as Lugia's silver feathers, Ho-Oh's rainbow feathers, etc. However, Xiao Yang has been in this world for such a long time, and he has never seen the hair of a third-level god, let alone those first-level gods. It seems that those legendary beasts have really become legends in this world. I didn't expect that Xiaomao's Blastoise has already reached the king level. From this, it seems that the quality of this quartz conference will be quite high. Xiao Yang reached out and patted Zai on the shoulder, saying, "Ha, there's no point in thinking so much now anyway, and didn't we come to Lanling Island to improve our strength? Relax, relax, there will be no problem with your and the Pokémon's talents." Zai nodded firmly, then looked up at Xiao Yang and said, "I believe you can do it, Xiao Yang. Let's have a full-scale showdown at the Quartz Conference then." "Okay, then we'll have a good fight. It's just a king level. I believe my Pokémon can also reach the king level. You'd better be careful then." Zai patted his chest confidently and said, "Don't worry, no matter who our opponent is, Pikachu and I will definitely defeat him, right?" "Pikachu. Pick up." Pikachu stood up very confidently, put his hands on his hips, and puffed out his little chest. "We won't give up easily, so everyone should intensify your training tomorrow." Xiao Yang was also aroused by Zai's desire to win, and turned to Pidgeot and the others and said, "Bye. Ka. Mana. Swoosh. Hiss. Meow." Pidgeot and the others also shouted with high morale. Into the night. Zai, who was keeping watch outside, was silently looking at the bright stars in the sky. The Pokémon were all asleep, and Xiao Yang even set up a tent. He muttered to himself, "Xiao Yang and the others are quite powerful, although I don't know why." He didn't seem to have much confidence at the beginning. "Hey! What is that?" At this moment, Zai suddenly noticed that there was a beam of fire moving in the distance at a very fast speed. Could it be a Pokémon? Thinking of this, he immediately picked up the blue jacket beside him and put it on excitedly, then ran towards the direction of the fire. After running for a distance, Zai could clearly hear the calls of Pokémon, and there was more than one. Zai quickly pushed aside the bushes in front of him. The bright moonlight shone on the earth, and the scene in front was clearly visible. I saw 3 big white cats with sharp claws slowly approaching a small monkey in front of them with flames on its tail. "That's Mongoose / and Flame Monkey." Zai immediately recognized the identities of both parties. At the same time, he also found that Flame was not in a good condition, with wounds of various sizes all over its body. At this moment, 3 meerkats jumped up together and pounced on the little Flame Monkey, whose eyes were full of fear. "No, stop it!" Seeing this, Zai hurried over, and then, an incredible scene happened. The flame on the little Flame Monkey's tail suddenly became huge. Then, the little Flame Monkey jumped up and turned its body, spitting out flames from its mouth. A huge wheel of flames quickly formed and then rushed straight towards the unsuspecting meerkats. The huge wheel of fire easily knocked all the mongoose slashers away, making them lose their ability to fight, and left a spiral scorch mark on the ground. After a while, the Infernape stopped, and the Infernape in the center of the spiral scorch marks looked around breathlessly. Zai also ran over at this time. "Are you okay?" Although he was shocked by the power that the little Flame Monkey had just burst out, he still ran to the other party immediately, picked him up, checked his injuries, and took some healing potions from his pocket. As for Ash, who suddenly came and picked him up, the little flame tried to struggle, but he felt weak all over and then fainted. Chapter 41. The little flame monkey gradually integrates. You mean you encountered a group of mongoose slashers chasing the little flame monkey last night, and then the little flame monkey burst out with terrifying power at the critical moment, knocking down all the mongoose slashers with a single move of the flame chariot. Because of the serious injury, the little flame monkey fainted directly, and you brought it back. Xiaoyang's eyes twitched as he looked at Zai, who was taking good care of the little flame monkey. No, it only took one night for you to encounter such a thing. How long have you been on Lanling Island? And why do I feel that this plot is so familiar? Zai nodded and said, it seems that they were fighting over food, so I also took some potions and food to kill those 3 meerkats. No, that's not the point. Xiaoyang couldn't help but rub his forehead. You mean this little flame monkey was being chased by mongoose slash, and at the critical moment, it suddenly burst out with great strength and defeated them all with a single move of the flame chariot. Yup. Zai scratched his head and said, to be honest, I was really shocked at the time. I didn't expect that the little flame monkey would be so powerful. Okay, it's confirmed, it's the eldest brother. Damn, why is the eldest brother here? Shouldn't he be in the Sinnoh region? Why haven't I met him in Lanling Island for so many days? You met him in just one day. Is this fate? Or are you cheating? Woo! The little flame slowly opened his eyes and found himself surrounded by a group of Pokémon and 2 humans. He was so frightened that he jumped up, quickly backed away, and looked at Zai and others vigilantly. Just then, he suddenly noticed that some of his injuries were gone, and he was covered in some bandages. You are injured, you can't run around. Seeing this, Zai hurried over, but did not get too close to Flame. Instead, he stopped at a distance, squatted down, and stretched out his hand. He knew that the little flame monkey must be very scared at the moment. You are seriously injured and need proper treatment. I will never hurt you. Please trust me, okay? Pika, Pika. At this time, Pikachu ran to Flame, stretched out his hand to him, and gave him a friendly smile. The other Pokémon also started calling out, probably trying to explain things to him and urge him to get treatment. And Flame also began to hesitate. He could clearly feel the kindness emanating from Satoshi and the others. Then, he mustered up his courage, slowly walked towards Zai, and tremblingly stretched out his hand to shake Zai's broad palm. Zai also smiled and felt relieved. Thank you for believing in me, little flame monkey, I will definitely cure you. Xiaoyang sighed silently, thinking secretly, the Pokémon succubus is really worthy of its reputation. Sure enough, no matter which world he is in, Zai's affinity for Pokémon is full. The little flame monkey, who had already been treated, was standing quietly, watching the surrounding Pokémon and the 2 humans busying around. After all, it was only about 7 o'clock and they were preparing breakfast. Looking at the Pokémon around him, some holding or grabbing various things, Flame wanted to reach out and had an urge to help. Soon, the breakfast noodles were ready, a bowl of broth, plus the bread that had been prepared long ago, and a basin full of Pokémon food for the Pokémons. Zai brought a bowl full of exclusive food for fire-type Pokémon to Flame and said to him in a gentle tone, Here, Flame, this is your portion. It's delicious. Would The little Flame looked at Zai, then looked at the food in front of him, and was a little undecided. At this time, the fire dinosaur next to him came over with his food. Ho ho! He called out to the little flame monkey a few times, gestured for a while, then picked up his food and started eating it in big mouthfuls. Seeing this, the little flame monkey also tried to pick up one and put it in his mouth to taste it. After chewing for a while, the little flame monkey's eyes lit up, and he immediately stretched out his hands and began to wolf down the food like the Charmeleon. How is it? Delicious, right? Zai asked happily. Woo! The little flame monkey also raised his arms in response. After eating and drinking, Zai immediately stood up excitedly and said to Xiaoyang, who was silently interrupting, Xiaoyang, continue to fight with me. Xiaoyang put the napkin in his hand aside, stood up, and looked at Zai, come on. Come on, Pikachu. Then I'll use Cat Boss here. Use 100,000 volts. Use Shadow Ball. When Zai took the lead in commanding Pikachu, he used his signature skill. Xiaoyang was not to be outdone. The cat boss condensed ghost energy in his mouth. A dark purple energy ball collided with lightning, and the two energies exploded the moment they touched. The Pokémons all stopped what they were doing and watched the cat and mouse duel intently. Flame also followed with a curious look on its face. Use lightning flash. When Pikachu heard the order, he instantly turned into a beam of white light and quickly rushed towards the cat boss. Then we'll use shadow clones. The cat boss's figure instantly turned into several after images. Pikachu, who was rushing forward, couldn't stop and crashed into one of the after images. Use this opportunity now to split. Xiao Yang seized the opportunity in time and ordered Cat Boss to counter-attack. Cat Boss's claws instantly grew longer, emitting white light, and quickly grabbed Pikachu. Use the Iron Tail to attack from behind. Pikachu didn't hesitate at all in response to Zai's command. A stream of steel energy gathered on its tail, and then the entire tail emitted a unique metallic luster and was swung backwards violently. Chiang! Tuwei and Pikai were in a stalemate in a head-on confrontation. Use your other hand to continue using the split. Pikachu, adjust your body and use Iron Tail continuously. The claw of Cat Boss's other hand also became slender, and it grabbed Pikachu swiftly. Pikachu's tail instantly exerted force, pushed Cat Boss's claw away, and then turned around again to face another splitting attack. The two sides were in a stalemate. Seeing this, Xiao Yang couldn't help but sweat on his forehead. Although he had expected this, he still found the current situation a little bit unbelievable. He didn't expect that the cat boss with two claws would not be as powerful as Pikachu who only had a tail. At this moment, looking at the fierce battle between Cat Boss and Pikachu, a special emotion flashed in Flame's eyes. Chapter 42. Conquering the Little Flame Monkey. In that case, Boss Cat, use Shadow Clone. In an instant, several cat bosses appeared on the field. Faced with this sudden situation, Pikachu's Iron Tail attack couldn't help but pause. Go ahead, use the split attack. All the cat bosses on the field showed their sharp claws and pounced on Pikachu. Pikachu used 100,000 volts to sweep the entire field. In response, Ash did not panic, but calmly let Pikachu fight back. A powerful electric current burst out from Pikachu, scattering all the cat bosses that were flying over. Use a stand-in. Suddenly, one of the cat bosses once again created a shadow to block the oncoming electric current, and then pounced in front of Pikachu. Two fierce splitting attacks hit Pikachu directly, knocking it away. Pikachu uses your tail to bounce back and then uses Iron Tail to attack. Pikachu flew backwards in mid-air, suddenly opened his eyes, and then adjusted his body so that his tail touched the ground. Then something happened that made Xiao Yang dumbfounded. Pikachu's tail was pressed to the ground like a spring, and then it bounced out suddenly. At the same time, the tail condensed steel energy, and the Iron Tail hit the cat boss head heavily, who had no time to react. The cat boss immediately let out a scream, flew backwards, and fell heavily to the ground. Boss Cat! Seeing this, Xiao Yang immediately ran over and helped the cat boss up. Are you guys okay? Pick up. At this time, Zai and Pikachu also ran over and looked at Cat Boss with some concern. After all, the place that was attacked was the head, and Cat Boss itself was not a Pokémon with strong defense. Sorry, it seems we were too harsh, Zai scratched his head embarrassedly, his eyes full of apology. The Cat Boss just shook his head at everyone, indicating that he was fine. At this time, the Pokémons also gathered around and asked the Cat Boss about his health. The Cat Boss also stretched out his hand and greeted them one by one. It seemed that there was nothing serious, but to be on the safe side, Xiao Yang still gave him a comprehensive treatment. Xiao Yang wiped the sweat from his forehead and said, "It looks like there's nothing serious, don't worry. But Zai, you are really amazing. My move was originally intended to disrupt your offensive rhythm, but I didn't expect you to react so quickly and take advantage of the situation to counterattack." No, this is all thanks to Pikachu. Zai felt a little embarrassed when facing Xiao Yang's praise. At this moment, Zai suddenly felt his trouser leg being pulled. When he looked down, he found that it was the little flame monkey, who was pulling at the corner of his pants and looking at him straight in the eyes. What's wrong? Flame monkey, Zai bent down and asked. Xiao Yang sighed silently in his heart and thought, is this my fate? Then he walked up to him and said, it seems like he wants to fight with you, too. Zai, What do you think? Do you want to take this opportunity to capture the little flame monkey? Hey, do you want to tame the little flame monkey? Hearing Xiaoyang's suggestion, Zai was stunned for a moment, then showed a happy expression. What do you think? Infernape, do you want to be my Pokémon? Let's become stronger together. Zai turned and looked at Infernape, asking with some trepidation in his heart. The little flame monkey naturally nodded in agreement. This time, the battlefield was left to Satoshi and Infernape. Come on, Pikachu! Pick up! And Zai naturally sent out Pikachu. Pikachu uses Flash. Pikachu immediately turned into a streak of white light and charged straight towards the flame. After all, the current flame was just an ordinary elite level, and faced with the flash of lightning from Pikachu, it had no time to dodge and was directly knocked away. Seize the opportunity to win and use 100,000 volts. The iconic 100,000 volts erupted again. The little flame monkey, who had just adjusted his body, had no time to dodge, but he did not sit there and wait for death. Instead, he used the flame wheel to resist. Boom! The powerful electric current quickly broke through the flame and hit the small flame and body directly, causing a huge explosion. Because the flame wheel blocked a large number of attacks, the little flame monkey did not lose its combat ability directly. Continue attacking using 100,000 volts. This time, Flame managed to regroup and used its digging skill to avoid Pikachu's 100,000 volts. Use the lightning flash to gain the initiative, and then launch a fierce attack to disrupt and suppress the opponent. It seems that Zai's fast attack style is about to take shape. Xiao Yang, who was standing aside watching the game, muttered to himself. Pikachu, don't just stand there, run! Pikachu immediately ran quickly on the field, trying to disrupt Infernape's attack. However, as we all know, the hit rate of the digging skill in the anime is as high as 99%. Basically, few Pokémon can successfully avoid the digging attack, and this time was no surprise. Pikachu, who was running fast, suddenly felt his feet sink, and then a pair of thin arms wrapped in ground energy pushed him out, and the little flame monkey jumped out directly from that place. Pikachu, adjust your body quickly and use 100,000 volts. Pikachu, who was still in mid-air, opened his eyes immediately when he heard Zai's order. Arcs of electricity flashed on his cheeks, and 100,000 volts fell from the sky and directly hit the flame monkey. Howl! Facing the violent electric current, the little flame monkey couldn't help but scream. After the electric current dissipated, the little flame monkey fell down as expected. Its eyes turned into whirlpool shapes and arcs of electricity were still coming out of its body. Go, Pokeball! Zai quickly threw out an empty Pokeball and collected the Charmeleon in it. The Pokeball shook slightly on the ground a few times and then stopped. When Zai saw this, he immediately ran over, picked it up, held it high and said, I have captured Flame. Pikachu. After successfully capturing Infernape, the two immediately released it and gave it some treatment. After helping it recover its strength, they began to formally introduce their other Pokémon partners to it. And Flame's lively and active personality quickly integrated into the Pokémon. Looking at the happy scene over there, Zai couldn't help but reveal a proud smile. At this moment, Xiao Yang came over and said, come to think of it, Zai, you have been here for so long. Don't you need to call your family and friends? They might think you are dead. Eh? Ah. Oh no. I totally forgot. Chapter 43. Forest Lizard. Hey, if everything is fine, why did you call me now? Do you know how worried I have been these days? On the screen, Sunday, who was angry, was questioning Zai loudly, while Zai bowed his head humbly and admitted his mistake. I'm sorry, Sunday, this is all my fault. I should have told you about my current situation as soon as possible. The technological level of this world is really quite advanced. Even on an uninhabited island like this, radio can still be used normally. As long as it is not in a place with particularly chaotic magnetic fields, there will be no situation where communication is impossible. Since his mother didn't know that he was on the Saint Anne and that something had happened, Zai immediately called Sunday, who knew about the incident. And the moment he saw her for the first time, Zai knew that he had made the right choice, because he found that Sunday's eyes were a little red, obviously because she had been crying. Facing her questioning, Zai would not and dared not talk back, but apologized silently and humbly, because his mother taught him that if he made a girl cry, he must apologize obediently, and this was even more so if the girl was a very good friend of his. Xiao Yang, who was standing aside and watching Zai being scolded, was stroking his chin, not knowing what he was thinking about. It seems that even though Brock and Misty are gone, the legend of Satoshi having at least one female companion every season continues. Sunday? I remember she was the girl who made Satoshi blush in the original series. Thinking of this, Xiao Yang glanced at the figure on the screen and said, I have to say, she has a very good foundation and will definitely be a great beauty in the future. Xiao Ji is really popular with women. Looking at her expression, if she told me that she doesn't have that kind of feeling towards Xiao Ji, I wouldn't believe it. Seeing Zai humbly admitting his mistake, Shende calmed down and softened his tone, so, you've already arrived at Lanling Island, right? Zai nodded and said, yes, I have successfully arrived at Lanling Island. Sunday, do you want to come over? Sunday shook his head silently and said, sorry, Zai, I changed my mind. I plan to practice in a secret place of the Alliance. After the incident of Saint Anu, I have realized how big my shortcomings are. I want to become stronger in my own way. Zai also agreed with Sunday's determination and immediately said, is that so? Then. But, just when Zai wanted to encourage her and end the call, Sunday spoke again, after you finish your training and come back to Kanto, I will continue traveling with you. Remember to notify me then. Really? That's great. When Zai heard that Sunday would continue traveling with him, he was very happy. After all, it is always good to have a companion during the trip. Sunday was very satisfied with Zai's expression, and continued, there is one more thing. You have to contact me once a day from now on, okay? Huh? Why? Zai looked at the other party with some confusion in his eyes. Any questions? In response, Sunday did not answer, but spoke word by word, her tone full of oppression, as if Zai disagreed, she would rush out of the screen and tear him to pieces. Not to mention that the IQ of Zai in this world is pretty good. Although his EQ is relatively low, it is still pretty good. Even if it was the wooden man Zai in the original work, facing this kind of oppression, he would definitely give in without hesitation. After the two sides finished talking, Zai sat on the grass feeling a little tired. It's time to go, Zai, Xiao Yang suddenly shouted to Zai at this moment. Hey? Where are you going? As soon as Zai turned around, he found Xiao Yang who had already put on his backpack. That's where we're going next, Xiao Yang said, pointing into the distance. Zai looked in the direction of his finger and found a very tall ancient tree not far away, but there were no leaves on the trunk. It seemed that the tree must have been alive for a long time. On the way, Xiao Yang explained to Zai that he planned to try his luck there to see if there was any wood gecko. When he heard that there might be a Carcharodonix from the Hone region, Zai became very excited. Zai knew Pokémon like Carcharodonix. The starter Pokémon from the Hone region were grass-type Pokémon that Zai liked very much. Looking at Zai walking quickly in front, Xiao Yang couldn't help but look at the ancient tree in the distance. I had some guesses when I went to that place before, but unfortunately I found nothing. So, Zai, let me see if all this is destined, he said, and quickened his pace to catch up. The two soon arrived under the ancient tree. Looking up at the big tree that was gradually withering, Zai couldn't help but sigh, this tree must be at least a few thousand years old. Pikachu also raised his head and looked at the ancient tree that was more than 100 meters tall with surprise. By the way, there doesn't seem to be a wood gecko here. Zai looked around in confusion and was about to turn around to ask Xiao Yang. Then, he suddenly felt a sense of danger coming from behind, and without saying a word, he jumped forward. At this moment, a series of green bullet-like attacks hit the place where Zai was originally standing. This is a seed machine gun. Xiao Yang immediately recognized the attack and turned around to look. Zai, who had steadied himself, looked towards the master who launched the attack, and when they saw the other person's figure, their pupils couldn't help but shrink. I saw that the other party had a branch in its mouth. It was green in color, with a huge leaf on its head and 2 leaves on each arm. It looked like a lizard. This is a forest lizard. Moreover, it's actually a forest lizard at the elite peak level. Xiao Yang looked at the forest lizard in front of him in some disbelief. When Zai saw this, he immediately held out his pokeball to the forest lizard in front of him and said, "Come and fight me, forest lizard, I want to conquer you." The forest lizard's expression softened slightly in response to Ash's challenge. Seeing this, Xiao Yang, who had a little understanding of how Zai captured the bouquet, also understood. It seems that the opponent has mistaken us for bad guys who want to harm this giant tree, and Zai is now requesting a battle with him to let him know that our target this time is him. After learning this, Xiao Yang immediately explained it to Zai. After hearing Xiao Yang's explanation, Zai immediately put down the pokeball in his hand and said to the forest lizard, "It's not the forest lizard you think. We are not here to destroy this ancient tree. We just want to fight with you and then conquer you." It doesn't seem very good to say this. The forest lizard seemed to understand what Zai meant. It nodded slightly and let down its guard. Xiao Yang, who saw the whole scene, became more and more confident in his own judgment. Chapter 44, The Vanishing Ancient Tree. The forest lizard looked at the boy in front of him with Pikachu. For some reason, he always felt a sense of familiarity, as if the two knew each other. He would always inadvertently let down his guard towards the boy. The forest lizard nodded in agreement to Zai's request for a battle. For this battle, Zai thought for a moment and then sent out Charmeleon. After all, Pikachu had just experienced 2 battles, and there were only plants and trees all around. If Charmeleon was used, the surroundings might be set on fire. Flame had just been healed, and Sea Dragon was a water type, so the surrounding environment was a bit unfavorable to him. "Monkey, use bounce." The monkey monster bent his knees slightly, then suddenly jumped up and jumped directly into the air. A flying energy gathered at his feet. The monkey monster adjusted his body and kicked towards the forest lizard. It's quite magical that the monkey monster can use the jumping skill, Xiao Yang couldn't help but mutter to himself as he watched the monkey monster jumping high into the sky. After all, in his impression, even if the monkey monster used a learning machine, it couldn't learn to jump. The monkey monster took less than 2 seconds to attack. However, for a Pokémon like Lizard, which is also famous for its jumping ability and speed, it was quite easy to dodge. He just jumped slightly to the outside and avoided the monkey monster's jumping attack. But Zai's offensive will not stop just like that. The monkey monster goes forward and kicks him down. After the monkey monster's attack missed, he jumped towards the forest lizard again. This time, he stretched out his slender legs and swept towards the legs of the forest lizard that was still retreating. The kick hit the forest lizard's leg hard, causing it to lose its balance and fall directly to the ground. Continue to attack. Monkey monster uses bare-handed attack. The monkey monster crossed his arms and faced the forest lizard again. The forest lizard lying on the ground suddenly raised its head and opened its mouth. A stream of green bullets like a machine gun came out of its mouth and hit the monkey monster that was running forward head-on. The monkey monster's offensive was immediately halted, and it automatically cancelled the empty-handed attack. The forest lizard seized the opportunity and immediately used lightning flash, directly knocking the monkey monster several meters away. "Don't lose, monkey monster, use your hand knife to attack." The monkey monster lying on the ground immediately flipped over and jumped up, his hands emitting fighting energy, and rushed straight towards the forest lizard. The forest lizard was not to be outdone. The leaves on its left arm emitted grass-type energy, and then suddenly transformed into a green blade of light, also rushing towards the monkey monster. "That's the forest lizard's leaf blade skill," Xiao Yang, who was watching the battle, reminded Zai in time. Soon, the knife blade and hand knife attacks collided with each other. The monkey monster waved his hands continuously towards the forest lizard, and the forest lizard also waved the knife blade in its left hand to attack the monkey monster. The two pets were inseparable for a while. Xiao Yang on the side couldn't help but frowned, stroking his chin and thinking, if I remember correctly, Zai's Lizard King should be able to use double blades, but this forest lizard can only use the blade with one hand. Is it because the level is not high enough, or is there another reason? Rustle, rustle. Hey! Hey! What happened? Pick up! At this moment, a strange sound suddenly came from the side, and everyone couldn't help but stop what they were doing and look to the side. Then something unbelievable happened to everyone. The ancient tree, which was originally intact, suddenly began to turn into invisible sand and slowly dissipated. What on earth is going on? Why would the ancient tree do this? Even Xiao Yang felt a little puzzled by this magical sight. After all, according to the original book, although the ancient tree would die, it should be broken in the middle and split into two halves. But now this scene is disappearing. Faced with this incomprehensible phenomenon, everyone felt at a loss, especially the forest lizards, which were so anxious that they ran around the ancient tree, shouting loudly at it. Ring ring ring! Suddenly, a pleasant bell sounded around. This sound, full of the breath of nature, made everyone present startled. Then, the whole ancient tree began to emit brilliant green light, and then turned into starlight that drifted everywhere. The green light that fell to the ground merged into the ground, and saplings began to grow on the ground. The whole forest began to exude vitality. Some of the green lights were directly integrated into the body of the forest lizard. Crack! Under everyone's incredulous gazes, the forest lizard actually broke through the elite peak level in one fell swoop and reached the initial level of Quasi-King. Before everyone could be surprised again, they found a strange round bead floating in the air. The round bead slowly fell down and finally floated into the hands of the forest lizard. That's the Lizard King's Megastone. Xiao Yang, who knew a lot about Pokémon, immediately recognized the origin of the round bead. He never expected that the ancient tree actually contained the Megastone of the Lizard King. At this time, the forest lizard was a little dazed. It stood there blankly, looking at the mega in its hand. Zai and the others were still immersed in the shock of what had just happened and had not yet recovered. The first one to wake up was Zai. He looked at the forest lizard with some concern, and was about to go forward to comfort him when his hand was grabbed by Xiao Yang. Zai turned his head to look in confusion, and Xiao Yang shook his head at him and said, he needs to calm down for a while. After hearing Xiao Yang's words, Zai nodded silently and watched the forest lizard with Pikachu and the others. Everyone just stood there, not knowing how long they had been standing there, until the sun set in the west, and the forest lizard, which had been as tall as a statue, began to move. He turned around and pointed at Zai. Have you recovered yet, forest lizard? Zai was very happy to see that the forest lizard had successfully recovered, but then he noticed the fighting spirit that erupted from the forest lizard. Zai immediately understood his thoughts. Do you want to continue the previous battle? The forest lizard nodded and hooked his finger at Zai. Okay, in that case, let's go, monkey monster. Wait a minute, Zai, Xiao Yang, who had already stood up, shouted to Zai. He did not have as good physical fitness as Zai, so he sat on the ground to rest after standing for a while. The forest lizard has now successfully entered the Quasi-King level, and the monkey monster is only at the elite peak, so I'm afraid it will not be able to defeat the forest lizard. In response to Xiaoyang's reminder, Zai shook his head and said, don't worry, I believe in the monkey monster, and look, and pointed his finger at the monkey monster beside him. Xiao Yang looked in the direction of Zai's finger and found that the monkey monster was staring at the forest lizard with his eyes wide open, and a strong fighting spirit burst out of his body. I don't think the monkey monster wants the battle just now to end so hastily, right? Monkey! The monkey monster also jumped out immediately and confronted the forest lizard. What else could Xiao Yang say about this? He could only stand aside and watch the battle with Pikachu. The second round of battle begins. Chapter 45. Fierce Battle. Come on, the monkey monster uses the knife to attack. The monkey monster once again used his hand knife to rush towards the forest lizard, and the forest lizard once again used the knife leaf attack, but this time the knife leaf attack was different. This is double swords. Not good. The forest lizard used both arms of the lizard to attack the monkey monster head-on. He swung the lizard in his left hand to attack the monkey monster. The monkey monster was about to attack with one hand, but suddenly he felt a strong sense of danger and immediately changed from one hand to two hands. Bump! The force of the blow was so great that the monkey monster's hands were directly opened by the forest lizard's blade attack. Then, it suddenly twisted its body and chopped at the monkey monster with the blade in its right hand. The old strength had been exhausted and the new strength had not yet been generated. The monkey monster had no time to fight back and was hit head-on by the blade. The terrifying force made the monkey monster fly backwards and did not stop until it hit a tree. Are you okay, monkey monster? Pick up. Zai and Pikachu immediately looked at Monkey King with concern, only to see him stand up shakily and nod at Zai and the others, obviously still having the strength to fight. Since a frontal attack doesn't work, we will use harassment. The monkey monster will use continuous bounces to disrupt the steps of the forest lizard, and then we will attack when we get the chance. After hearing Zai's order, Monkey King immediately condensed flying energy at his feet and used the bouncing skill to jump around continuously. The forest lizard couldn't help but narrow its eyes at the monkey monster's action, and its aura became stronger again. No. Zai, the forest lizard is the ranger of the jungle. You will anger him if you act like this. What? Although Zai knows about the forest lizard, his understanding of it is not that deep. The reason why he likes Bionic Gecko is that he thinks he is very cool, but his understanding of him is still insufficient. The forest lizard used the lightning flash to move at an extremely fast speed while using its own jumping ability to jump back and forth in the forest like the monkey monster. The two continued to fight in the air. Although he could fight the forest lizard back and forth for a short period of time by relying on the flying jumping skills, the strength of the forest lizard was ultimately one level higher than that of the monkey monster. Soon, after the two sides collided again, the monkey monster's legs softened as he landed on the ground, and he knelt down on one knee weakly, supporting his body with both hands, breathing heavily, and staring fixedly in front of him. The forest lizard also stopped and stood right in front of the monkey monster, with its arms clasped together and its eyes staring at the monkey monster silently, without launching another attack. Has the winner been decided? Zai muttered as he looked at the scene in front of him. Monkey. Just when Zai was about to go over and change Monkey Monster back, Monkey Monster suddenly raised his head and started screaming loudly, and then a bright white light enveloped it. This is... Has it started to evolve? Everyone looked at the Monkey Monster wrapped in white light with some joy. When the white light faded, the original Monkey Monster was gone. Instead, a Pokémon that was larger than the Monkey Monster, with thicker limbs and black shackles on its hands and feet appeared in front of everyone. Great! Congratulations, Monkey Monster! No, it should be Infernape. Monkey. Infernape turned and nodded to Ash, then continued to look at the forest lizard, and the forest lizard lowered its clasped arms, and the fighting spirit rekindled in its eyes. After evolving, Infernape's strength has reached the primary level of a Quasi-King. It should be said that evolving during battle is a normal operation for the protagonist. Xiao Yang, who was standing aside and watching the battle, said silently that what happened today alone was enough for him to relax for a while, so that when faced with the sudden evolution of the monkey monster, he felt no ripples at all. Very good Infernape, use the knife to attack. Infernape swung his fists and rushed towards the forest lizard. The forest lizard once again used its blade leaf to meet it. Suddenly, a brown fighting energy condensed from Infernape's fists and faced the forest lizard's blade leaf head-on. A punch and a sword collided with each other, and both Pokémon put in all their strength. The powerful waves spread in all directions, and the two skills were deadlocked in place. They are equally matched, and that move is not a knife attack, it is. It's the sucking punch. Zai, Infernape has learned the sucking punch. Xiao Yang, who was watching the fight on the side, immediately shouted to Zai. So that's how it is. Infernape continues to use the absorbing punch attack. When Infernape heard Ash's order, he immediately exerted his strength to block the forest lizard's blade, and immediately used his other hand to use the absorbing punch. The forest lizard was not to be outdone, and also used his other hand to use the blade to fight back. The two pets continued to fight each other with swords and punches. However, Infernape's melee ability is obviously better than forest lizard's, and its absorbing fist has a skill that can convert the damage caused to the opponent into its own energy. Coupled with the anger point characteristics of Infernape, as the anger value in his body increased, he became more and more energetic, and his attacks not only did not stop at all, but became more and more fierce. On the other hand, the forest lizard had already begun to breathe slightly. After another collision, Infernape immediately seized the opportunity of the forest lizard, condensed a hot fire energy in his right hand, and then his fist was instantly wrapped in a flame. Infernape immediately swung his fist and hit the forest lizard head-on, causing him great damage. That move is, Flame Fist. You're so awesome, Infernape. I didn't expect you could even learn the fire punch. The forest lizard took a few steps back, steadied itself, and immediately fired a seed machine gun at Infernape. Infernape uses his flaming fist to knock down all the seed machine guns. Infernape swung its flaming fists continuously, destroying the oncoming green bullets one by one, while constantly approaching the forest lizard. Go ahead, Flaming Fist. When they reached a certain distance, Infernape swung out another straight punch. Facing the burning fist coming towards him, the forest lizard's eyes flashed with a trace of determination. In front of everyone's surprised gazes, he did not retreat but instead moved forward, blocking the flaming fist head-on. Then, with amazing perseverance, he swung the leaves above his head and launched a slapping attack. Infernape was caught off guard by the forest lizard's sudden attack. While hitting Infernape with the slap, it also blocked his vision. The forest lizard took advantage of this opportunity to quickly swing out two more blades. This time, the blade attack severely opened an X-shaped wound in front of Infernape's body. Infernape took staggering steps and retreated a distance. He knelt on the ground with weak knees, supporting himself with his hands to prevent himself from falling, but his eyes were fixed firmly on the forest. The forest lizard also knelt on one knee, supporting his knee with one hand, and looked at Infernape breathlessly. Inferno, forest lizard. Zai looked at the two exhausted Pokémon with some concern, but then shook his head. No, this is their choice and their battle. As a trainer, there is only one thing I need to do. Then, Xiao Yang saw Zai put his hands on both sides of his mouth, forming a trumpet shape, and shouted loudly, "Come on, Infernape, lizard, stand up quickly." Xiao Yang's eyes twitched when he saw this scene, but he sighed slightly and murmured, "Maybe this is Xiao Ji." Hearing Zai's shout, the two Pokémon subconsciously glanced at him, but then turned to look at each other. At the moment when the two pets' eyes met, they seemed to have reached some agreement. Both sides simultaneously used all their strength to support their bodies and stood up again. Then, a huge aura burst out from the two pets. The forest lizards were emitting a green aura and that majestic natural force. The aura of the forest lizards had actually stepped into the intermediate Quasi-King level. Circles of light appeared around Infernape, and signs of increased attack power kept appearing on Infernape. Although its overall ability had not reached the intermediate level like the forest lizard, there was no doubt that its powerful force would ensure that its next move would have the same lethality as a regular intermediate Quasi-King. That's the anger point and luxuriance, but this is a bit too bizarre. Relying on luxuriance can bring such a big improvement. This power is much stronger than ordinary luxuriance. Only the fierce fire of the eldest brother can suppress him. However, Infernape's anger appointment came too late. Was it because the blade hit the vital point just now? Or is there any other reason? Very good, now comes the final blow, Infernape, use your full strength and use the fire fist. Monkey. Ace. The forest lizard also used its blade leaves with all its strength. Boom. The moment the knife and fist collided with each other, the two powerful energies collided with each other in an instant, and finally produced a huge explosion, and the scene was suddenly filled with smoke and dust. Zai put out his hands to cover his mouth and nose, but his eyes were fixed on the movements on the field. Chapter 46. GS Ball. When the smoke cleared, everyone finally saw the scene. Infernape's fist hit Forest Lizard's face, and Forest Lizard's blade chopped Infernape's waist. The two Pokémon were covered with scars of varying sizes, and then... touch! The two Pokémon just fell down straight away, both with their eyes closed, obviously no longer able to fight. Infernape. Forest Lizard. Seeing this, Zai ran over quickly. Is it a draw? Xiao Yang immediately stood up and followed, saying at the same time. Zai first helped Infernape up and checked his injuries. At the same time, he looked at the forest lizard in front of him with some worry. But when he looked up, he found that Xiao Yang was already checking the forest lizard. Seeing this, Zai immediately turned his attention to Infernape and took out the potion from his backpack to treat him. After another flurry of busy work, the aura of the forest lizard and Infernape gradually stabilized, and Zai couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Let's put them back into the Pokeballs first, and then we'll look around to see if there's any place to camp nearby, Xiao Yang suggested to Zai. Alas! But this battle is a draw. The forest lizard. Xiao Yang, who knew what Zai wanted to say, shook his head and said, "Don't worry, the forest lizards are definitely obedient to you now. In fact, at the moment when you were cheering for them just now, the way the forest lizards looked at you had changed." Oh! Really? Zai scratched his head in confusion. After all, he didn't notice the forest lizard's expression at the time. Forest lizard, you're awake. Upon hearing the voice, Zai immediately looked at the forest lizard. The forest lizard opened his eyes slightly and nodded at Zai. Obviously, as Xiao Yang said, he had agreed with Zai. Look, the boss has agreed, why are you still hesitating? If you don't want to surrender, I will take you. Okay, in that case, come on, forest lizard, let's be our partner. Zai was not a person who would hesitate. He immediately took out the Pokeball and put the forest lizard in it. There was nothing much to say about the process. Naturally, the forest lizard joined Zai's team. Where's Pikachu? Just as Ash put Infernape back into the Pokeball and the two were about to leave, Ash suddenly discovered that Pikachu was missing. After hearing what Zai said, Xiao Yang looked around in confusion and said, "It's really strange. He was with me just now." Pie card. At this moment, the voice of Pikachu was suddenly heard from the place where the ancient tree was located. The two looked in the direction of the voice and found that Pikachu was walking towards them. If they looked closely, they would find that he was holding a Pokeball in his hand. "Pikachu, why did you go there?" Seeing this, Zai hurried over. Is that a Pokeball in your hand? Where did you get it? I don't seem to have a Pokeball of this color. It should be noted that Zai took the thing in Pikachu's hand out of curiosity and looked at it in his hand. What's wrong? At this time, Xiao Yang also ran over and asked. Pikachu seems to have picked up a Pokeball near the ancient tree just now, but this Pokeball is not mine. It might have been left here by another trainer, said Zai as he handed the Pokeball in his hand to Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang reached out to take it in confusion, but his pupils couldn't help but shrink when he saw the Pokeball for the first time. This is a golden Pokeball, and it is no different from other Pokeballs except for the color. But what really surprised Xiao Yang were the two letters engraved on this Pokeball. GS. Xiao Yang, do you know this Pokeball? Seeing Xiao Yang's expression, Zai immediately asked. Xiao Yang nodded gently and said, "Well, I do know a little about him, but before that, let's find a place to rest, and then I will tell you slowly." "Oh, that's true." Zai and his companions, including the recovered forest lizard and Infernape, were now sitting around the campfire. Xiao Yang held the GS ball in his hand and said slowly to Xiao Ji, "I have only heard some rumors about this Pokeball. The name of this ball is the two letters engraved on it, called GS ball." GS ball. Xiao Yang nodded gently and continued, Zai, I think you should know the legendary Pokémon, which is what we call the legendary beasts, right? Yeah, I know that, these Pokémon are recorded in my parents' notes, Zai said, nodding to Xiao Yang. It is rumored that this GS ball is made of the rainbow feathers of the legendary Pokémon Ho-Oh and the silver feathers of Lugia, and is specially used to capture another mythical Pokémon Celebi. What? You mean this Pokeball is made of Ho-Oh and Lugia's feathers, and is used to capture Celebi? In response, Xiao Yang shook his head and said, I'm not sure about this. After all, this is just a rumor. I haven't actually seen it. Is that so? Zai couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief after hearing Xiao Yang's words. At this time, Xiao Yang looked at the GS ball in his hand and kept thinking, why did the GS ball appear here? And if I am not mistaken, this Pokeball should be the same as the Megastone of the previous Lizard King, both hidden in the ancient tree. Can this Pokeball really capture Celebi as explained in the game? But then, Xiao Yang sighed silently, and said lightly, even if he really has such ability, he can't belong to me. The ancient tree did not disappear earlier or later, but disappeared when Xiao Ji came. This is very telling. I'd better not rashly get involved in this cause and effect. Xiao Yang, what are you talking about? Xiao Yang did not answer Zai's question, but handed the GS ball to Zai and said, I'll give it to you for safekeeping. Hey, why? Can't you just hold this Pokeball, Xiao Yang? Zai asked with some confusion. First of all, this Pokeball was brought back by your Pikachu. Secondly, haven't you seen it yet? Whether it's the ancient tree, the forest lizard, or this GS ball, they are obviously waiting for you, the destined one. What does this mean? Zai still couldn't wrap his head around it. Hey! Zai, you know what? I have been on this island for a long time, and I have been to that ancient tree several times, but nothing happened. And you have just arrived on this island not long ago, and these things happened as soon as you came to this ancient tree. Don't you think that these are as if they have been arranged by God? Zai, who had already understood Xiaoyang's meaning, still asked with some confusion, isn't this an accident? Hearing Zai's words, Xiaoyang couldn't help but roll his eyes at him and said, there are not so many accidents in this world. Many things are actually already destined. This is your fate. You can't transfer it to me, and I can't bear it for you. As he said that, he handed the GS ball to Zai again. Although Zai was still a little confused by Xiaoyang's words, he still reached out and took it. And at the moment when Zai reached out to take the GS ball, a faint silver light emanated from Zai's backpack. However, because the movement was very small and everyone was by the campfire, no one noticed it. Chapter 47, The Injured Charizard. Boom! A huge Tyrannosaurus fell down, and Pikachu opposite him couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Phew, I finally defeated him. Zai wiped the sweat from his forehead and said with some lingering fear. I've solved it here, too. At this time, Xiaoyang also came up, and behind him, there were several armored rhinos lying down. The feathers of the Pidgeot following him were a little messy, and it was obvious that it had also experienced a hard battle. How was it? Is this the first time you've been attacked by a wild Pokémon? Xiaoyang took out a glass of water and handed it to Zai. After Zai took the water and took a big gulp, he handed the water to Pikachu beside him and said, well, although I have heard my mother talk about this before, this is the first time I have seen such a situation. I didn't expect it to be so dangerous here. Xiaoyang waved his hand and said, this is normal. The resources on this island are very rich. Therefore, the Pokémon living on this island have a very strong sense of territory. Pokémon, this magical creature, is surprisingly similar to humans in some ways. Those powerful Pokémon always want to occupy more resources. At the same time, this is also the reason why although Lanling Island has such huge natural resources, few people come here to practice. Is it because the Pokémon here are more aggressive? Zai looked at Xiaoyang and asked his question. This is one of the main reasons. The other is that the geographical location of Lanling Island is actually not easy to find. Since we are on the island now, you may not have noticed it, but in fact, the island is covered by a special fog. In addition, the island itself is moving, which makes its location difficult to grasp. Then Xiaoyang, how did you come to this island? Zai looked at Xiaoyang with some confusion. A friend brought me here. He once captured a mini dragon on this island, and he also happened to know the way here. Hey, what about your friend? Why haven't I seen him before? He was called back by his family. I haven't contacted him for a while. I'll give him a call later. Speaking of this island, I have to ask one more question, Zai, isn't your mother really some legendary big shot? Xiaoyang intentionally changed the subject, but at the same time, he also asked Zai a question that made him very curious. After all, I had asked Zai before, if he didn't drift here along the waves, how could he get to this island? After all, the location of this island is really not easy to find. Zai's answer was, my mother told me that after arriving at XXX and then walking a distance to the right, you can see the island. Although I don't know exactly where the location my mother reported is, she told me that after arriving at Honglian Island, just find an experienced captain and report the location to him, and he will take us there. To be honest, when Xiaoyang heard Xiao Zhi's answer, he was immediately upset. Although he didn't know whether the location Xiao Zhi reported was correct, it was Hanako who said this. Would she lie to her own son? In other words, Hanako could actually accurately predict the location of Lanling Island, which made people think deeply. Well, I don't really know much about my mother. After all, she never talked about her affairs, and I didn't ask. I just want to know that she is my mother. That's true, Xiaoyang couldn't help but nod in agreement with Xiao Zhi's statement. Some things really shouldn't be pursued too deeply. It is enough to know that the other party will not harm you. We have now entered the middle level of Lanling Island. The Pokémon here generally have the strength of a quasi-king level. There may even be king-level Pokémon here. Let's look around here to see if there are other Pokémon. It would be best if we could find some that are stronger than the ones we have. Only in this way can we truly unleash their potential. Of course, if we encounter a Pokémon that is higher than the quasi-king level, we must not hesitate and run away quickly. Do you understand? Zai also nodded in agreement. Then, the two separated and went to look for their respective opponents. There don't seem to be any other Pokémon around here. Haven't I left the territory of Tyrannosaurus yet? After walking for a distance, Zai did not encounter any other Pokémon, which made him feel a little confused. Skin. Suddenly Pikachu pricked up his ears and sniffed forward. What's wrong? Pikachu. Pick up. Pikachu pointed forward, then jumped off Ash's shoulder and ran forward. Hey, wait for me, Pikachu. Zai saw this and hurriedly followed. After passing through one huge tree after another, the scene in front of him became particularly bright, and at this time a familiar figure came into Zai's eyes. At this moment, Pikachu was looking at the wounded Pokémon in front of him with a worried look on his face. This is Charizard. Yes, this Pokémon is Charizard, the evolved form of Charmeleon, but this Charizard is very large, much larger than the Charizard used by Mew that Zai saw in the Noble Academy before, and he has a scar at the corner of his eye, making him look even more imposing. At this moment, Charizard was lying on the grass with a listless look on his face, but the aura emanating from him made Pikachu, who had already reached the Quasi-King level, break out in a cold sweat. It was obvious that the opponent's strength was definitely at the King level. Roar! At this time, Charizard opened his eyes slightly, saw Zai walking towards him, and immediately roared. Wait a minute, Charizard, listen to me, I won't hurt you. You are seriously injured and need treatment immediately. Pika, Pikachu also ran to Zai and persuaded Charizard. But the other party still bared his teeth, and it was obvious that he would not listen to them at all. Instead, he opened his bloody mouth, and then a huge flame spewed out of his mouth. Seeing this, Zai and Pikachu jumped out hurriedly and barely avoided Charizard's jet of flames. Wait a minute, Charizard, please calm down, okay? Although he was attacked by Charizard, Zai still did not give up and kept persuading Charizard. Roar! Seeing that his attack did not hit the opponent, Charizard roared immediately. When he was about to continue using flames, he suddenly felt dizzy and his body fell heavily to the ground, raising a cloud of dust. Charizard! Pick up! The moment before he closed his eyes, he saw the boy and Pikachu running towards him. Chapter 48. The Power of the Fire-Breathing Dragon. When Charizard opened his eyes again, he found that the surroundings were pitch black. It must have been night. There was a fire burning in front of him. Two human boys were sitting by the fire, seemingly talking about something. Seeing this, Charizard was about to get up, but suddenly found that his body was wrapped in thick bandages and some of the wounds on his body had healed. It was obvious that the two human boys in front had helped him treat them. So he stopped what he was doing, continued to lie down, closed his eyes, and listened carefully to what the two human boys were saying. Zai, although I have said this many times, I still want to ask you again, do you really not have any special physique? Well, probably not. I feel like, apart from being stronger than ordinary people, there's no difference between me and normal people. Zai touched his head embarrassedly. It's no wonder Xiao Yang said that. After all, so many things have happened in just a few days since he came to Lanling Island. In Xiao Yang's words, I have lived here for so long, but none of them are as exciting as the few days you have been here. In this regard, Xiao Yang could only sigh and no longer continue this topic. Instead, he said, then, what are you going to do with that Charizard? Hearing the other party talking about himself, Charizard couldn't help but prick up his ears, even though he didn't have any ears. Then he heard Zai say as a matter of course, after he is fully cured, let him return to his original territory. In response to Zai's answer, Xiao Yang showed an expression of as expected, and said quietly, you are really worthy of being Zai. If it were someone else, they might have captured this king-level Charizard on the spot. After hearing Zai's answer, Charizard let down his guard a little. Just when he wanted to continue sleeping, he suddenly felt a pair of eyes looking at him. He couldn't help but open his eyes slightly, and then he saw a golden fire dinosaur looking straight at him. Although Charizard was a little surprised when Charizard suddenly opened his eyes and looked at him, he did not avoid it and continued to stare at the other party. And Charizard also understood the meaning in Charmeleon's eyes. That was a look that almost all Charizards had. It was admiration for the strong and the desire to become stronger. Charizard stared at the other for a while, then closed his eyes and fell into a deep sleep. The next day, when the morning sun shone down, Zai felt something pushing his cheek, and he tried his best to open his heavy eyelids. What came into view was the figure of Pikachu. Seeing the current situation, he couldn't help but yawn and rubbed his eyes, which were still a little sleepy. "What's wrong? Are you hungry, Pikachu?" "Pika Pika." Pikachu shook his head silently, then ran out, calling out to Zai with his tail. "Where are you going, Pikachu?" Seeing this, Zai quickly got up and followed. "What's wrong?" At this moment, Xiao Yang just woke up and saw Zai running out in a hurry. Thinking something had happened, he hurriedly followed him. The two followed Pikachu to an open space. That is. At this time in the open space, Charizard and Charmeleon were staring at each other, and around them were sitting familiar audience Pokémon. "Charizard, are you okay now?" Seeing that Charizard had taken off all the bandages on his body, Zai couldn't help but shout at him. Charizard just nodded silently, but did not look at Zai, but continued to stare at the Charmeleon in front of him. What are they doing? Seeing such a formal scene, Zai couldn't help but ask puzzledly. "From the looks of it, Charizard seems to be helping your Charmeleon train," explained Xiao Yang, who has more travel experience than Zai. "I think he wants to repay your kindness, Zai. So this is all." At this moment, the training of both sides began. The Charmeleon immediately used its dragon claws and rushed towards the Charizard. Charizard just hugged his chest and silently looked at Charmeleon rushing towards him. The moment he successfully approached Charizard moved. He just raised his arms, and the familiar dragon energy gathered in his claws. He launched the same dragon claw attack as Charizard, but it was obvious that Charizard's dragon claws were many times stronger than Charizard's. Boom! With just one move, Charizard was knocked away without any resistance, and it was obvious that Charizard did not use his full strength. Seeing that close combat didn't work, Charmeleon immediately changed his tactics. He stretched out his fist and smashed the ground hard. Then pillars of fire shot up into the sky and rushed straight towards Charizard. A circular pillar of fire directly wrapped up Charizard. Facing Charmeleon's oath of fire, Charizard still looked disdainful and didn't even think about moving, and was hit directly by his attack. After the flames dissipated, Charizard was not injured at all, and now it was Charizard's turn to fight back. He just gently raised his foot and stomped hard on the ground. It was still the familiar oath of fire, but the power was even more unmatched. What wrapped up the fire dinosaur was not a pillar of fire, but a huge cylindrical wall of fire. Fire dinosaur! Even though they were so far away, Zai and Xiao Yang felt a burning breath, and their hair was slightly curled by the burning, which made Zai look at Charmeleon worriedly. But it was obvious that Charizard knew its limits. At the moment when the flames were about to engulf Charizard withdrew its skills in time, and the scorching flames dissipated, revealing Charizard, who was already sweating profusely. "Is the difference in strength too great?" "No," Xiao Yang at the side also said, "it's not just a simple difference in strength. The Charizard's mastery of skills is obviously much higher than that of Charmeleon. It seems that we have underestimated this Charizard. He may have reached the peak level of the king, and may even have 1 foot in the champion level." "What? Are you telling the truth, Xiao Yang?" Zai looked at Xiao Yang in surprise and asked. Being able to control one's own strength so easily and use skills freely is an ability that is absolutely impossible without the peak level of the king. At this time, Charizard and Charmeleon also walked towards Zai and the others. Chapter 49. Partying. "Have you finished your training, Charmeleon?" Seeing them stop what they were doing and walk towards him, Zai couldn't help but ask curiously. "Roar!" Charmeleon shook its head, called out to Zai, and then began to gesture with its hands and feet. Zai watched for a long time before he understood what Charmeleon meant. "You mean you want to go somewhere else to train with Charizard next?" This time, the fire dinosaur nodded. "Is that so? Then you must work hard." Although Zai was a little surprised that Charmeleon suddenly wanted to leave, he soon showed a relieved smile. After all, the Pokémon itself is determined to become stronger, so the trainer naturally cannot be unhappy. Although Zai feels a little reluctant about the upcoming separation, he will definitely support him. Charmeleon grabbed onto Ash's pants, with some reluctance in his eyes. In response, Ash leaned down, touched his head, and said, "Go ahead. This is the path you chose. You don't need to consider me. I'm looking forward to seeing how powerful you will become when we meet next time." Seeing this, Charmeleon nodded firmly, and after saying goodbye to Pikachu and the others, he walked towards Charizard beside him. Charizard also looked at Ash and nodded to him. Xiaozai also nodded in response and said, "I'll leave Charmeleon to you." Xiaozai and Xiaoyang watched silently as Charizard and Charmeleon flew towards the depths of Lanling Island. Xiaozai felt a little melancholy in his heart. After all, this was the first time he truly felt the separation, but then he smiled with relief. Then, he felt his shoulder being pushed, and he turned around to see Xiaoyang looking at him. "Okay, that expression is not like you at all, Xiaozai. It's not like we'll never see each other again. I believe he will come back to help you before the Quartz Conference begins. Then you can fight side by side again." "That's true. Anyway, we will meet again soon. By the way, let's prepare breakfast first. I haven't eaten yet and my stomach is growling with hunger." He said this and touched his stomach. Hearing what Xiaozai said, Xiaoyang subconsciously touched his stomach. He didn't feel anything just now, but now he did feel a little hungry. He then shouted to the Pokémon, "Okay, everyone, let's go have breakfast. Pick up. Woody. Prick." Hearing that dinner was finally about to begin, the Pokémon immediately shouted excitedly. It was obvious that they were also very hungry. The breakfast was rather plain, just a few sandwiches and a full glass of milk, which you can find everywhere in shopping malls. The Pokémon ate the high-quality Pokémon food that Xiaozai had specially prepared for them. Considering that they might stay in Lanling Island for a long time, Xiaozai used half of his 10-year Pokémon food membership card. All of these foods were put into Xiaozai's special backpack. To be honest, when Xiaoyang saw Xiaozai take out so many Pokémon foods from such a small backpack, he couldn't help but feel a little amazed. As expected, there are many things in the Pokémon world that are incomprehensible. He really wants to ask Xiaozai, could this backpack be specially made by Xiaogang? Considering that there might be new companions joining after entering Lanling Island, Xiaozai prepared some Pokémon food of each attribute. When Xiaoyang saw Xiaozhi taking out boxes of high-end food, he quietly put away the intermediate food that he had spent a lot of money to buy, and directly reached out to Xiaozhi to ask for some. Xiaozai not only did not feel the slightest bit disgusted by Xiaoyang's direct way of asking for things, but instead he readily gave Xiaoyang a large amount of things. After all, Xiaoyang has helped him with many things, and even if these things didn't happen, Xiaozai would still share them with his personality. Oh, right, Xiaozai, who was eating a sandwich, suddenly thought of something and immediately picked up the backpack beside him. Then, in Xiaoyang's puzzled eyes, he took out an incubation device from the backpack, and inside it was a blue egg. "I almost forgot about this egg. It looks like it should be fine." Xiaozai opened the incubator and carefully checked the condition of the egg. "Xiaozai, what is this egg?" Xiaoyang asked with some confusion. "Oh, this egg is one of the championship prizes I won in the fishing competition held by the Cerulean Gym, and the other prize is those Pokémon food." Xiaozai took out his handkerchief, gently wiped the azure egg, and explained to Xiaoyang. "I heard from them that this seems to be an egg brought by Carlos. I wonder what kind of Pokémon will hatch from it." Carlos. Xiaoyang couldn't help but be startled when he heard this place, and then immediately looked at the egg in Xiaozai's hand in disbelief, thinking to himself, "No way, is it such a coincidence?" "Well, Xiaoyang, do you know the Kalos region?" Seeing the surprise in Xiaoyang's eyes, Xiaozai couldn't help but ask curiously. After all, during these few days of getting along, Xiaozai's first impression of Xiaoyang was maturity. Although the things about the GS ball and the ancient tree still made him look panicked, Xiaozai also knew that those things were indeed outrageous. Not to mention Xiaoyang, even if it was a champion of the 4 heavenly kings who faced these things, he would probably be shocked. Xiaoyang is usually very calm, but he was so surprised when he saw Xiaozai take out this egg. This made Xiaozai curious. Is there something wrong with this egg? Well, I do know a lot about the Kalos region, Xiaoyang, who had recovered from his shock, said it lightly without any intention of continuing. Xiaozai did not continue to ask. In his opinion, Xiaoyang was a big mystery. He seemed to know a lot about many things, but he deliberately concealed them. Of course, Zai didn't mean to blame Xiao Yang. After all, everyone has their own secrets, and Zai is not the kind of person who would dig deep into things, so he had no intention of delving into Xiao Yang's concealment. At this time, Xiao Yang kept thinking, the blue one is probably right. He didn't expect that Zai's main lineup in the original work would be gathered so quickly. He was afraid that the next journey might not be easy. At this moment, Zai's egg suddenly trembled slightly, and then emitted a dazzling white light. This is... Is it going to hatch? Chapter 50. Incubation. When the white light faded, a Pokémon that looked like a frog, was blue all over, and had a ball of white foam around its neck appeared in front of everyone. Is it really a croaking bubble frog? Is this the big three of the Kalos region, the Quokka Boa? Zai looked at the little blue frog in front of him with some curiosity. At this time, all the Pokémon also gathered around, looking at the new companion in front of them with some curiosity. The moment Frog opened his yellow eyes, he saw Zai in front of him. He looked at him curiously, then looked around and took in the surrounding environment. Hello, Frog, I'm Satoshi from Pallet Town. Satoshi stretched out his hand and greeted the frog in front of him cordially. Frog looked at the smiling Zai in front of him, felt the affinity and familiar breath emanating from him, and couldn't help but reach out his hand to shake his hand. Pikachu. At this time, Pikachu, as the representative of all Pokémon, also jumped onto the table and greeted the frog in front of him. Quack! This frog is different from most newly born Pokémon. It is very brave and not afraid of strangers at all. It quickly started talking to Pikachu in front of it. Seeing that the two pets were chatting very speculatively, Zai did not disturb them. I took out another portion of water-type primary Pokémon food from my backpack and placed it in front of Froggy. Quack Bubble Frog, do you want to eat something first? This is delicious. Quigwa. Frog picked up the black Pokémon food curiously and put it in front of its nose to sniff it, then looked at Pikachu puzzledly, as if asking him a question. Pikachu nodded at him, then picked up a piece of food and put it into his mouth to taste it. He also stretched out his hands to support his cheeks, trembled all over, and put on an expression that looked very delicious. Pikachu, who has successfully entered the Quasi-King level, is actually not very effective with ordinary food, let alone the primary water-type Pokémon food. The taste is definitely not as exaggerated as Pikachu has currently shown. The reason why Zai took out the basic Pokémon food was because Froggy was just born not long ago, and he couldn't feed him those high-end ingredients all at once. He needed to slowly recuperate and polish his body first. In this regard, Xiao Yang couldn't help but sigh. Sure enough, no matter which world the Pikachu is from, as long as it's Zai's, its acting skills are absolutely professional. Seeing Pikachu like this, Frog let down his guard, picked up a Pokémon food and put it in his mouth to chew for a while. Then his eyes lit up involuntarily, and he reached out his hand again to pick up the food inside, and began to put one by one into his mouth. The expression of enjoyment on his face was definitely not fake. Zai was also very happy to see the bubble frog in front of him eating voraciously. After eating and drinking, Zai formally invited Frog to capture it, and Frog was obviously a warmonger and immediately agreed to Zai's request. Taking into account that Frog was born not long ago and is just in the ordinary novice stage, he had to send out his weakest Blaziken to fight. The current level of the Flame Monkey is only Elite Intermediate, which is quite suitable for dealing with the newly born frog. Go use Spark on the Flame Monkey. Woo-gee! I saw the little Flame Monkey spitting out flames from its mouth. It was obvious that it was definitely released into the sea. Not only is it a low-power move like Spark, but it's also impossible for Flame's sparks to be so small since it has reached Elite Intermediate level. Seeing the flames flying towards it, the bubble frog condensed water energy in its mouth, and then spit out a stream of water from its mouth, destroying all the attacking flames. It's a water gun. I didn't expect that a bubble frog, which was just born not long ago, can already use the water gun trick. Its aptitude is really extraordinary. Xiao Yang, who has been traveling for 5 years, naturally couldn't possibly not know about the water gun, but what really amazed him was that the water gun was used by a bubble frog, which was just born not long ago. This is really amazing. Xiao Yang muttered to himself, when a normal croaking frog is just born, it can only use 2 special moves, slapping and calling. It takes at least 3 or 4 days for it to learn the water gun. Can I say that it is worthy of being the future ninja frog? Well done, frog. In that case, use grab, flame. Ash was very happy that Frog could counter-attack so quickly, but he did not stop the rhythm of the attack and continued to command Flame to attack. After receiving Zai's command, Flame ran towards Frog quickly. After a while, Flame came in front of Frog, raised its sharp claws, and grabbed the opponent fiercely, while Frog waved its palm and slapped it. The two sides just collided for a moment and then jumped away from each other. At this time, Flame turned around and nodded to Ash, and Ash nodded in response, then turned his gaze to Frog. Okay, Bubble Frog, I already know your approximate strength, and I'm going to use my strength next. Quack, quack. Hearing what Zai said, Frog couldn't help but widen his eyes and concentrate on looking at the Charmeleon opposite him. Oh, so you are testing the current strength of Bubble Frog? I thought you were planning to let him go, stalemate with Bubble Frog for a while, and then knock him down without any mistake. Hearing Xiao Yang's words, Xiao Ji couldn't help but roll his eyes at him and said, how is that possible? If that's the case, it would be too disrespectful to Frog, right? Flame Monkey uses Flame Wheel. The little Flame Monkey jumped up and turned over, spitting out flames from his mouth, covering his entire body. The Flame Wheel rushed straight towards the croaking Bubble Frog, and the croaking Bubble Frog not only did not dodge, but actually went straight to meet it. Just when the two were about to collide with each other, Frog suddenly used its shadow clone to avoid Flame Monkey's fire wheel. Then, all the clones quickly turned around and used water guns to attack. Little Flame Monkey, don't stop. Just keep dodging with the flame wheel, then turn around and counter-attack. Although Zai was very surprised at the fighting skills displayed by Frog, his hands did not stop moving at all and he immediately took countermeasures. The little Flame Monkey maintained the flame wheel action, constantly dodging the water gun attacks shot from the air, and then found the right opportunity to turn left and attack the croaking Bubble Frogs. Under the operation of the little Flame Monkey, the flame wheel quickly broke up the clones of Frog one by one, and soon only the real body of Frog was left. Frog obviously didn't intend to sit there and wait for death, and immediately used a water gun to attack the flame wheel that was rushing towards it. The water stream, which was smaller than any water gun Zai had ever seen, hit the flame wheel directly, causing a wisp of steam to come out, but it failed to stop the flame wheel's attack. Quack! The Bubble Frog couldn't escape the fate of being knocked down after all. Its body was directly knocked away by the flame wheel and fell heavily to the ground, instantly losing its ability to fight. Go get the poke ball! Zai immediately threw out the poke ball and caught the frog. After a flash of red light, the poke ball fell to the ground and shook slightly a few times. Boom!